Hi everyone! Before we get into this audiobook, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button and drop a like. It helps me out a lot as well as contributes a lot to the channel. Now, let's get into the story. I hope you enjoy. The bond had always been a simmering ember beneath Evelyn Thorne's skin, a constant, low thrum that resonated deep within her soul. It pulsed strongest whenever Ares, the formidable alpha of the Crescent Moon Pack, was near. Tonight, as the soft golden light of the Luna ceremony bathed the grand ballroom of the Astor Hotel, that ember ignited into a roaring blaze. Every nerve ending sang with a desperate, exhilarating awareness of his presence. He stood on the raised dais, a figure of raw power and undeniable authority, his dark hair falling in a perpetually windswept style, framing a face sculpted from sharp angles and formidable strength. His eyes, the color of twilight skies just before the first stars appear, held a gravity that drew her in, promising a destiny she had yearned for since she was a young wolf, the silent ache of an incomplete soul. She knew his reputation. Unyielding, strategically brilliant, a leader forged in the crucible of countless challenges. He was the protector of his pack, fiercely loyal, capable of both immense warmth and chilling resolve. The Luna ceremony was meant to be their affirmation, the public declaration of their fated bond, a joyous culmination of the undeniable pull that had existed between them for years. Yet, an unsettling stillness permeated the air, a tension that seemed to crackle around Ares, despite the celebratory decorations and the hushed murmurs of the assembled packs. It was a silence that spoke of unaddressed fears, a presentiment that chilled her to the bone even as the heat of their bond scorched her. Evelyn, usually composed and analytical, felt her heart hammer against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the quiet dread that had settled in the pit of her stomach. Her own silver eyes, typically bright with an inquisitive spark, were clouded with a profound anxiety she couldn't shake. Her uncle, the wise and stoic elder alpha of the Silverwood Pack, stood beside her, his hand a comforting weight on her shoulder. He was a man carved from granite, his wisdom etched in the deep lines around his kind eyes. "Be strong, little one," he murmured, his voice a low rumble, barely audible above the hushed reverence of the crowd. "Your destiny awaits." He spoke of destiny, but his eyes held a flicker of something else, a deep-seated worry that Evelyn couldn't quite decipher, a silent warning. The ceremony began. The ancient chants filled the air, reverberating through the opulent hall, a timeless melody that spoke of heritage and unbreakable vows. One by one, Alpha Thorne presented the revered elders and significant figures from both the Silverwood and Crescent Moon Packs, their faces solemn, their expressions a mix of hope and apprehension. Each step brought her closer to Ares, closer to the moment their hands would meet, their bond would be sealed, and their future would begin. Her breath caught in her throat as her uncle gently nudged her forward. She walked towards the dais, her steps measured, her gaze locked onto Ares. His eyes met hers, and for a fleeting moment, she saw the raw, consuming intensity of their bond reflected in their depths, a recognition that transcended words. It was a promise, a yearning, a desperate connection that seemed to pull her forward with an invisible string. Her soul sang, echoing the power of his presence, the profound sense of the longing that flooded her. This was it. This was their moment. The very air around them vibrated with the undeniable energy of their connection, palpable to every wolf present. Ares extended his hand, his fingers long and strong, poised to meet hers. Her heart swelled with an almost unbearable anticipation, a lifetime of dreams coalescing into this single, potent instant. She reached out, her fingers trembling slightly, ready to complete the sacred gesture, to intertwine their fates. But just as their fingertips were about to brush, a subtle tremor ran through him. A flicker, quick as a serpent's tongue, crossed his face. His eyes, which had held hers with such consuming intensity, suddenly clouded, hardening into impenetrable obsidian. The warmth in their depths extinguished, replaced by a glacial coldness that sent a shockwave through her. His hand, instead of closing around hers, recoiled. It was a deliberate, agonizing withdrawal, a sharp, physical jolt that vibrated through her entire being, severing the connection as if by an unseen blade. The bond, which moments ago had burned like a supernova within her, flickered, then dimmed, threatening to extinguish completely. A gasp rippled through the assembled wolves, a collective exhalation of disbelief and shock. The sacred chants faltered, dying out in a strained silence that hung heavy and oppressive in the vast hall. Every eye was on them, on Ares's withdrawn hand, on her outstretched, now trembling, empty one. "I cannot," Ares stated, his voice ringing through the hushed hall, each word a hammer blow against her heart. His voice was devoid of emotion, flat and chillingly devoid of the passion that had just ignited between them. He didn't look at her, his gaze fixed on some unseen point beyond the crowd, his jaw tight, muscles clenching rigidly. "This union is not destined. The bond is false." The word struck her with the force of a physical blow, a devastating impact that stole her breath. "False?" she whispered, her voice cracking, barely audible, utterly disbelieving. Her mind reeled, struggling to comprehend the impossible. The searing heat of their bond, undeniable, all-consuming just seconds ago, now felt like a phantom limb, an agonizing ghost of what should have been. Her vision blurred, tears springing to her eyes, hot and stinging. She tried to meet his gaze, to find some explanation, some flicker of the alpha she knew, the wolf who had silently communicated his longing for her on countless occasions. But he wouldn't look at her. He wouldn't even acknowledge her pain. He simply stood there, a towering figure of indifference, his back ramrod straight, his profile carved from stone. The crowd's shocked whispers erupted into a cacophony of confused murmurs, growing louder, turning into a humiliating roar in her ears. She felt a burning flush creep up her neck, her cheeks hot with shame and disbelief. Her heart, which had soared so high, now plummeted, shattering into a million icy fragments within her chest. He had rejected her. Publicly. Cruelly. Without a single glance, without even asking why the tears were already streaming down her face, blurring the glittering lights of the chandeliers into amorphous blurs of pain. Elder Alpha Thorne stepped forward, his face etched with confusion and a deep concern, his gaze darting between his niece and the impassive Alpha Ares. "Ares, what is the meaning of this? The bond is clear. The seer confirmed it weeks ago." His voice, usually steady, trembled with a rare flash of anger. Ares finally turned, his gaze sweeping over the elder Alpha, then briefly, fleetingly, flickering over Evelyn's tear-streaked face. There was no recognition, no empathy, only a cold, distant assessment, as if she were a stranger, an inconvenience. "The seer was mistaken," he stated, his voice resonating with an authority that brooked no argument, a finality that crushed any remaining spark of hope within Evelyn. "There will be no union. The Luna ceremony is concluded." He turned on his heel, his cloak swirling around him, a dark shadow amidst the bewildered, murmuring crowd. He strode from the dais, his powerful frame cutting a path through the throng of stunned wolves, leaving a gaping void in his wake. The very air seemed to crackle with the aftershocks of his rejection, a seismic event that shook the foundations of tradition and fractured Evelyn's world into irreparable pieces. Evelyn stood frozen, the world spinning around her, the murmurs of the crowd growing into a deafening roar of humiliation and pain. The searing bond that had tethered her to him, a sacred thread spun by fate, felt violently ripped away, leaving a gaping, bleeding wound in her soul. Every wolf in the room felt it, the undeniable snap of a rejected bond, a profound cosmic error. The scent of her heartbreak, sharp and bitter, filled the air. A scent that every single wolf there, attuned to emotions and bonds, could perceive with agonizing clarity. Her uncle's arms were suddenly around her, his embrace tight, shielding her from the prying eyes, the shocked whispers. "My child," he murmured, his voice heavy with sorrow and bewilderment. "I do not understand. This cannot be. I felt the bond myself." But Evelyn couldn't hear him. Her mind was a whirlwind of shattered dreams, humiliation, and a searing, incomprehensible pain. He had marked her, not with a physical touch, but with the undeniable pull of their fated bond, the silent acknowledgement exchanged between fated mates over months of shared glances, unspoken desires, and potent, undeniable attraction. He had felt it. She knew he had. She had seen it in his eyes, felt it in the way his presence electrified her senses. And then he had rejected her, with cruel indifference, without a single word of explanation for her. The alpha she thought she knew, the wolf whose destiny was intertwined with hers, had publicly cast her aside, leaving her utterly exposed and broken. The ballroom, once a place of joyous anticipation, had become her personal hell, a theater for her deepest humiliation. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't endure another second of the pitying glances, the shocked whispers, the pervasive scent of her own raw heartbreak. With a desperate, choked sob, Evelyn Thorne pulled away from her uncle's comforting embrace. Her vision still blurred by tears, she stumbled blindly through the stunned crowd, her once elegant dress feeling like a shroud of shame. She felt the eyes on her, hundreds of them, burning into her back, dissecting her pain. She heard the horrified gasps, the hushed voices wondering what unspeakable thing had just happened. She heard the quiet, pitying murmurs of her own pack members, their sorrow compounding her humiliation. She burst out of the hotel's grand entrance, into the chill New York City night, the roar of Manhattan traffic a jarring, discordant symphony against the silence of her internal world. The bright lights of Times Square, usually a mesmerizing spectacle, now felt like a blinding assault, mocking her shattered dreams. She ran, without destination, without thought, the biting wind whipping her hair around her tear-streaked face, trying to outrun the excruciating pain that clawed at her heart, a pain more profound than any physical wound. She ran until her lungs burned, until her legs ached, until the skyscrapers of Midtown blurred into an indistinct mass. She ran until she found herself on a quiet, dimly lit street in a residential neighborhood, far from the dazzling spectacle of Times Square, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Leaning against a cold brick wall, she slid to the ground, pulling her knees to her chest, burying her face in her arms. The tears came then, in torrents, raw and guttural, each sob tearing through her, emptying her of everything but agony. "I hate him," she choked out, the words ripped from her throat, raw with bitter fury and devastating heartbreak. "I hate him. I hate him. I swear I will never return. Never." Her vow, whispered into the cold night air, was a desperate, burning promise forged in the crucible of her humiliation. It was a promise to herself, a vow to never allow herself to be so vulnerable, so utterly broken, ever again. The Luna ceremony had not marked the beginning of her destiny, but the abrupt, violent end of everything she had believed in, everything she had hoped for. Her soul ached with a hollow emptiness, a gaping void where the vibrant light of her bond to Ares once shone. It was a pain that permeated every cell, a cosmic wrongness that resonated through her very being. The rejection had not just shattered her heart, it had shattered her sense of self, her understanding of her place in the world. She was Evelyn Thorne, daughter of a respected lineage, beloved niece of an elder alpha, and the woman who had been publicly, utterly, and inexplicably cast aside by her fated mate, the alpha of the Crescent Moon Pack. She was a broken thing, a discard, and in that moment, all she wanted was to disappear, to vanish from the face of the earth, to escape the crushing weight of her humiliation. Weeks bled into months, each one a stark, desolate landscape of healing and reconstruction for Evelyn. She had fled New York City the very next morning, leaving behind not just the Astor Hotel and the shattered fragments of her public humiliation, but also the familiar scent of her silverwood pack and the stifling pity of their gazes. She couldn't bear to face them, couldn't bear the constant reminders of the most devastating moment of her life. Her uncle, understanding the depth of her shame and heartbreak, had quietly arranged for her to stay in a small, secluded cottage nestled deep within the quiet, ancient forests of upstate New York. It was a place far removed from any major pack territories, a haven of solitude where she could lick her wounds in peace, away from prying eyes and the pervasive, knowing scent of other wolves. The cottage was rustic, humble, a stark contrast to the opulent penthouse she had once envisioned sharing with Ares. But its simplicity offered a profound sense of anonymity and a desperate yearning for peace. Surrounded by towering pines and the whispering hush of the wind through the leaves, Evelyn found a fragile solace in the isolation. She spent her days hiking through the winding forest trails, the rhythmic crunch of pine needles underfoot, a monotonous counterpoint to the turmoil in her mind. She swam in icy mountain streams, the biting cold a physical shock that momentarily numbed the aching void in her chest. She learned to forage for wild berries and edible mushrooms, finding a primal satisfaction in self-sufficiency. She found a quiet, unassuming part-time job at a small, independent bookstore in the nearest town, a place where she could lose herself in the printed words of strangers, far from the complexities of pack politics and fated bonds. Slowly, painstakingly, she began to mend. The initial raw agony of the rejection had dulled, replaced by a dull, persistent ache, a phantom limb where her bond to Ares had once been. She still felt it, a faint, almost imperceptible thrum beneath her skin, a ghostly echo of the powerful connection that had once burned so brightly. It was a constant reminder, a cruel whisper of what might have been, but it no longer consumed her. She told herself it was a residual effect, a lingering imprint of a bond that had been violently severed. She focused on rebuilding her own identity, one not defined by a mate or a pack position, but by her own quiet strength and fierce independence. She found a new rhythm to her life, a steady, solitary cadence that allowed her to breathe, to simply exist. However, as the weeks bled into the third month, Evelyn began to notice subtle shifts within her body, changes that defied her rational explanations. At first, it was just a heightened sense of smell, an almost overpowering sensitivity to certain scents she'd never noticed before: the earthy aroma of damp soil after a rain, the metallic tang of an approaching storm, the distinct notes of herbs in her tea. Then came the unfamiliar waves of nausea, a sudden, debilitating queasiness that would strike without warning, usually in the mornings, making her stomach clench and churn. She dismissed it as stress, a lingering symptom of emotional trauma. Her appetite became erratic, swinging wildly between intense cravings for unusual food combinations and a sudden, inexplicable aversion to her favorite dishes. Her once reliable energy levels plummeted, leaving her feeling utterly drained, perpetually exhausted, even after a full night's sleep. One morning, while tidily shelving new arrivals at the bookstore, a particularly strong wave of dizziness washed over her. She stumbled, clutching a bookshelf for support, the vibrant covers of the books blurring before her eyes. The scent of ink and paper, usually comforting, suddenly churned her stomach. A cold dread, distinct from the lingering heartache, began to coil in her gut. These weren't just symptoms of stress. This was something else. Something profoundly different. Her mind, despite her desperate attempts to deny the obvious, began to race, piecing together the unsettling puzzle. The missed shifts, the heightened senses, the relentless nausea, the inexplicable fatigue, and then the final, undeniable realization. Her cycle, which had always been as precise as a lunar phase, was significantly late. Her breath hitched. No, it couldn't be. Not after that night. Not after the rejection. Her hands trembled as she purchased a pregnancy test from the small, discreet pharmacy in town, her heart hammering against her ribs with a frantic rhythm. She locked herself in the cottage bathroom, her reflection staring back at her, pale and anxious, in the antique mirror. The 2 lines on the test strip appeared almost instantly, stark and undeniable, blazing a terrifying truth into her existence. Pregnant. The single word echoed in the confined space, vibrating through her, rocking her to her core. Her knees buckled, and she sank to the cold tile floor, the flimsy plastic stick clutched in her trembling hand. It was impossible. She had been so careful. But the wolf biology was different, often unpredictable, especially when fated mates were involved, even a rejected one. The bond, that faint, persistent thrum beneath her skin, was suddenly amplified, burning with a renewed, insistent heat. It was no longer a phantom limb, but a vibrant, undeniable connection, a pulsating lifeline to the life growing within her. The life of his child. Ares's child. The child of the Alpha who had publicly, cruelly, and inexplicably rejected her, casting her aside like unwanted refuse. The irony was a bitter, caustic taste in her mouth. She was carrying his heir, the future of the Crescent Moon Pack, conceived in a moment of desperate, fleeting hope, now a constant reminder of her humiliation. The bond, though rejected, had remained strong enough to facilitate conception, a cruel trick of fate, an undeniable cosmic tether. She pressed a trembling hand against her still flat abdomen, feeling the faint, almost imperceptible flutter of new life. A rush of conflicting emotions surged through her, terror, disbelief, and a fierce primal surge of protective love. This tiny, vulnerable life was hers, and hers alone to protect. She was no longer just Evelyn Thorne, the rejected Luna. She was the mother of an heir, a powerful, unshakable force. The distant whispers of war, which had been growing louder in the supernatural world for months, now took on a terrifying new urgency. News from the few discreet channels she maintained spoke of escalating skirmishes between ancient, long-dormant factions, of rising tensions between werewolf territories, of a growing, pervasive dread that permeated the collective consciousness of their kind. The ethereal barrier between the human and supernatural worlds seemed to thin, making the undercurrents of conflict more palpable. A profound sense of unrest pervaded the air, a primal shift that heralded a coming storm. The idea of bringing a child, his child, into such a volatile, dangerous world filled her with a new, fierce determination. She wouldn't return to him. Not now, not ever. The rejection had carved a canyon between them, a chasm of humiliation and pain too vast to bridge. She would raise this child alone, in the quiet anonymity of upstate New York, far from pack politics and the crushing weight of a rejected bond. Her child would be safe, protected from the machinations of powerful alphas and the brutal realities of pack warfare. This child would be hers, untainted by the betrayal that had scarred her. But the bond, burning brighter and stronger with each passing day, told a different story, a defiant counterpoint to her desperate vows. It was a constant reminder that no matter how far she ran, no matter how deeply she buried herself in solitude, a piece of her, and now a part of him, was inextricably linked. And as her body changed, subtly at first, then with increasing certainty, she knew it was only a matter of time before he felt it too. Before Ares, the alpha who had rejected her without a second glance, realized the profound, irreversible truth. He was about to be a father. And a powerful, unspoken war, both within herself and in the wider world, was about to begin. The Luna he didn't deserve was becoming the mother of his heir, and she would fight to protect her child with every fiber of her being, even if it meant defying fate itself. The quiet rhythm of Evelyn's life in the upstate cottage began to fracture under the burgeoning reality of her pregnancy. The initial shock had slowly given way to a fierce, protective instinct that pulsed through her veins. A primal force she hadn't known she possessed. Her daily routines, once a meticulously crafted shield against emotional pain, now revolved entirely around the nascent life growing within her. The morning sickness became a relentless, debilitating companion, forcing her to drastically reduce her hours at the bookstore. She spent more time curled on the small sofa, wrapped in a thick wool blanket, sipping ginger tea, the scent of books and coffee now an unbearable assault on her hypersensitive nose. The physical changes were undeniable, progressing with a swiftness that seemed unique to wolf pregnancies. Her waist thickened, subtly at first, then with a noticeable rounding that made her usual clothes feel uncomfortably snug. Her once slender frame began to soften, her breasts aching with a dull tenderness. Her senses, always acute as a wolf, became impossibly sharper, picking up scents from miles away, hearing the faintest whisper of wind through distant leaves. The world around her, once a blur of distracting stimuli, now felt intensely vivid, almost overwhelming in its detail. But it was the bond that truly defied her attempts at emotional distance. That faint, ghost-like thrum beneath her skin. The one she had convinced herself was merely a residual phantom, was now a roaring current, a powerful, undeniable connection to Ares. It pulsed with a rhythmic intensity that mirrored her own heartbeat, a constant, burning reminder of the wolf who had so cruelly cast her aside. It wasn't just a feeling, it was a physical manifestation, a warmth that radiated from her core, an ethereal tug that seemed to pull her towards him despite her fierce resistance. She could feel his emotions, faint echoes of his moods across the miles, a flicker of frustration, a surge of predatory alertness, a low, underlying hum of focused energy. It was unsettling, an invasion of the carefully constructed walls she had built around her heart. It was a testament to the fact that a fated bond, even rejected, could not be severed completely, especially when a new life amplified its power. She found herself, against her will, subconsciously reaching for her stomach, her fingers tracing absent-mindedly over her burgeoning bump. A profound, almost desperate love swelled within her for this unborn child. A love untainted by the circumstances of its conception, pure and fiercely protective. This child was her future, her reason to continue, her defiance against the humiliation she had endured. She would move mountains for this child. She would carve out a safe, peaceful existence for them, far from the brutal realities of pack politics and the emotional turmoil of a broken mate bond. The whispers of war, which had been distant rumblings when she first arrived, grew into a deafening roar. Her discreet news channels, mostly encrypted online forums and a few cautious hushed phone calls with her uncle's most trusted aides, brought increasingly alarming reports. The ancient threat her uncle had hinted at, the one that had cast a shadow over the Luna ceremony, was no longer a whisper but a full-blown onslaught. Rogue packs, once scattered and disorganized, were coalescing under a shadowy, charismatic leader known only as the Ravager. These wolves were driven by a terrifying ideology of primal chaos and raw, untamed power, seeking to overturn the established order and plunge the supernatural world into an age of brutal, unrestrained savagery. They were attacking settlements, raiding supply lines, pushing deeper into traditional territories, leaving a trail of devastation and fear in their wake. The boundaries between the human and supernatural worlds were indeed thinning, threatening to expose their existence to the oblivious human population. The Silverwood and Crescent Moon Packs, along with several others, were forming a desperate alliance, putting aside centuries of minor territorial disputes to face this common, existential enemy. Ares, as the alpha of one of the largest and most powerful packs, was at the forefront of the conflict, leading strategic attacks, rallying disparate forces, and bearing the immense weight of the escalating war on his broad shoulders. Evelyn could feel his relentless stress through the bond, a constant vibrating hum of exhaustion and fierce determination. It was a tangible pressure, like a weight on her own chest, despite the miles that separated them. She started seeing his face everywhere, in the stern, determined expressions on news reports of pack leaders, in the grim faces of exhausted warriors shown on grainy surveillance footage, even in the subtle flickers of emotion she felt through their infuriatingly persistent bond. He was gaunt, his eyes hollowed by lack of sleep, but his jaw was always set, his resolve unwavering. He was a war leader, formidable and unrelenting, a force against chaos. One evening, as she lay awake, restless with the burgeoning life within her and the distant echoes of war, a new, powerful surge pulsed through the bond. It wasn't frustration or fatigue this time. It was a sharp, undeniable pang of recognition, followed by a wave of raw, visceral shock, quickly morphing into a potent mix of disbelief and overwhelming possessiveness. He had felt it. He had finally felt the undeniable presence of their child, the blossoming life within her. He knew. Ares knew. The realization sent a jolt of ice and fire through her. She was no longer simply hiding. She had been discovered, not by a physical search, but by the undeniable power of their shared bloodline, by the very bond he had so cruelly rejected. Her carefully constructed solitude, her fragile peace, was about to be shattered. The game was up. Her phone, sitting silently on the nightstand, buzzed with an incoming call. The caller ID was blocked, but she knew, with an instinctual certainty, who it was. She stared at it, her breath hitched, her heart hammering. She couldn't answer. Not yet. She wasn't ready. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of knowing he could simply call her back into his life after such a devastating public rejection. The phone rang persistently, a relentless demand, then stopped. A text message followed, a single word that vibrated through the silent room, a stark reminder of his power and his fury. Evelyn. She squeezed her eyes shut, fighting against the sudden, overwhelming urge to weep. She was no longer just the girl he rejected. She was the mother of his heir, a formidable force in her own right, no longer vulnerable to his capricious cruelty. But the truth was, despite her fierce resolve, a part of her still ached for the connection, still yearned for the Alpha she had once believed in, the one who was supposed to be her destiny. The bond, now amplified by their child, was a constant, aching reminder of what they had lost and what was now irrevocably bound between them. The war was coming, and she was carrying its future, his future, and now he wanted her back. Not because he finally understood her pain, not because he regretted his actions, but because of the child. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but a truth she couldn't deny. The single, stark text message, "Evelyn," pulsated on her phone screen, a silent declaration of war that shattered the fragile peace of her secluded upstate life. Evelyn stared at it, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird, the rhythmic thrum of the amplified bond echoing its frantic beat. She knew it was Ares. There was no mistaking the singular intensity of his presence, even through a digital medium. He had felt the life within her, the burgeoning presence of their child, and the revelation had clearly rocked his formidable self-control. She didn't reply. She couldn't. The thought of engaging with him after months of bitter solitude, after the humiliation of his public rejection, was an unbearable prospect. What could he possibly say that would erase the searing pain of that night, that would mend the deep fissures he had carved into her soul? She wouldn't allow herself to be vulnerable to him again, not now, especially not with the precious, vulnerable life growing inside her. The phone began to ring again, a relentless demand, but she ignored it, letting it buzz into silence. Then came a series of rapid-fire texts, each one more urgent, more desperate than the last. "Where are you? Answer me. We need to talk. Now. This is about our child. Our child." The possessiveness in that phrase, conveyed even through cold text, infuriated her. Our child? The child he had unknowingly helped create, then discarded along with her. The gall of him to claim ownership after his cruel abandonment. A surge of icy anger, sharp and purifying, coursed through her, overriding the fear. He had no right. The bond, however, stubbornly refused to acknowledge her fury. It continued to hum, a constant, underlying pull, occasionally flaring with a jolt of his own powerful emotions. Through it, she felt a confusing mix from him, profound shock, an almost disbelieving awe, and then a rising tide of protectiveness that seemed to war with a desperate urgency. There was no malice in these recent emotional echoes, only a stark, undeniable shift in his perception. It was as if a veil had been lifted for him, and he was suddenly confronting a reality he couldn't comprehend, a truth he had somehow suppressed or been unaware of. The following morning, a sleek black SUV, clearly out of place on the quiet, winding dirt road leading to her cottage, idled near the edge of her property. Dev, Ares's head of security, a wolf with a stoic demeanor and eyes that missed nothing, stepped out. He was a familiar face from her previous life within pack circles, a loyal shadow always at Ares's side. His presence confirmed her worst fears. Ares wasn't just texting, he was actively searching. Evelyn watched from behind the thin curtains of her living room, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. She was wearing an old, oversized sweater that barely concealed the subtle swell of her belly. She hadn't expected him to find her so quickly, despite knowing Ares's formidable resources. Her isolated haven no longer felt safe. Dev approached the front door, his knuckles rapping softly, respectfully, but with an underlying firmness that spoke of urgency. "Evelyn," he called out, his voice low, controlled, yet resonating with an unshakable determination. "Alpha Ares wishes to speak with you. He knows. He wants to explain." Evelyn didn't open the door. Her hand instinctively went to her stomach, a silent shield protecting the precious life within. "There's nothing to explain," she called back, her voice deliberately flat, betraying none of the turmoil raging within her. "Tell him I'm not interested." A heavy sigh escaped Dev's lips. "Evelyn, this is not a choice. He feels the bond. He feels the child. He demands to see you. There are things you don't understand, things he couldn't tell you before." "Couldn't tell me?" Evelyn scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping her. "He couldn't tell me why he humiliated me in front of every pack leader? Why he called our bond false?" "No explanation will ever be enough, Dev." Her voice cracked, despite her attempts at control. The pain of that night, still so fresh and raw, resurfaced with agonizing clarity. Dev remained silent for a long moment, his gaze unwavering, fixed on the door, as if he could see straight through it. "The war is escalating, Evelyn. It's unlike anything we've faced in centuries. The Ravager is stronger, more insidious than anyone predicted. The pack needs its Luna, and the heir needs its father." His voice was low, grave, hinting at the desperate urgency that had driven Ares to such extremes. The mention of the war, of the Ravager, sent a fresh wave of fear through Evelyn, a stark reminder of the escalating global conflict. She felt the distant tremors of it through her heightened senses, the pervasive anxiety that clung to the collective consciousness of their kind. But even that couldn't eclipse the burning resentment she felt towards Ares. "I am no Luna to him," Evelyn retorted, her voice filled with a cold fury. "And this child has only me." Dev's eyes held a flicker of sympathy, quickly masked. He was tricked, Evelyn, misled. He made a terrible mistake, one that cost him everything. But the pack cannot afford this division, not now. He didn't elaborate, simply letting the words hang in the air, weighted with unspoken meaning. Evelyn clenched her fists. "Leave, Dev. Tell your Alpha that I am done with him and his pack. I will raise my child in peace, far from his lies and his wars." Dev nodded slowly, his expression grim. "He won't stop, Evelyn. He can't. The bond is too strong. And the child changes everything." He turned, his powerful frame re-entering the SUV, and moments later, the vehicle retreated down the winding road, disappearing back into the quiet hum of the distant highway. Evelyn watched it go, her heart a tangled knot of fear, anger, and a desperate, illogical longing. She had managed to rebuff Dev, but she knew this was just the beginning. Ares wouldn't send a subordinate again. He would come himself, and when he did, the confrontation would be inevitable. A seismic collision of shattered trust and undeniable destiny. The next few days were a blur of heightened anxiety. Evelyn moved through the cottage like a ghost, every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside the window, sending a jolt of adrenaline through her. She reinforced the cottage's primitive security, setting up wards and scent deterrents around the perimeter, ancient wolf tricks she'd learned as a child, hoping they would buy her time, if not outright protection. She felt the escalating war through the bond, a pervasive sense of urgency and danger. But she also felt Ares's relentless focus on her, a powerful, magnetic pull that grew stronger with each passing hour, like a tightening leash. Then, 3 nights later, as a full moon cast an eerie silver glow through the dense forest, painting the landscape in shades of spectral light, she felt his presence. It wasn't the distant echo she'd grown accustomed to. It was immediate, overwhelming, a palpable force that filled the air around her cottage, making the hairs on her arms stand on end. His scent, a potent mix of pine, ozone, and raw alpha power, seeped through the cracks in the walls, filling her senses, utterly intoxicating and terrifying at once. The bond flared, burning so intensely it felt like her very veins were on fire, pulling her towards him with an irresistible force. He was here. She stood frozen in the center of her living room, her hand pressed against her noticeably rounded abdomen, a silent shield. She heard the soft thud as he landed lightly on her porch, no doubt having shifted into his immense wolf form to cover the vast distance quickly. The floorboards groaned beneath his immense weight. Then, a single resonant rap on her door, a sound that vibrated through the very foundations of the cottage. "Evelyn," his voice, deep and resonant, rumbled through the wood of the door, his tone strained, laced with an unfamiliar desperation she hadn't heard before. "Open this door. We need to talk. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about our child, and the world is burning." Evelyn closed her eyes, tears of frustration and fear pricking at her eyelids. He was here. The alpha who had broken her heart, the father of her unborn child, standing on her doorstep, demanding answers, demanding his family. She had sworn never to return. But the bond, amplified by the life within her, was a living, breathing entity, pulling her towards him with an undeniable force. The scent of him, the sheer power of his presence, was intoxicating, a primal lure she struggled to resist. The confrontation she had dreaded, the moment of truth, was finally upon her. There was no running from him now. There was no running from their destiny, however fractured it might be. The sound of Ares's voice, deep and resonant, vibrating through the solid oak of her front door, was a physical shock that sent tremors through Evelyn's entire being. The raw desperation in his tone was a jarring contrast to the cold indifference he had shown her at the Luna ceremony, a confusing dissonance that disoriented her. The bond, a living, pulsating thing within her, flared with his proximity, a powerful magnetic pull that threatened to overwhelm her carefully constructed emotional walls. She instinctively pressed a hand against her noticeably rounded abdomen, a silent shield protecting the precious life within. "Evelyn," his voice came again, closer this time, imbued with an urgency that brooked no further delay. She heard a faint rustle of clothing, indicating he had shifted back to his human form, a deliberate act to reduce intimidation, to appeal to her as a man, not just an alpha. "Please, just 5 minutes, for our child. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't absolutely critical." Her breath hitched. "Our child." The possessiveness in his voice, even tinged with desperation, still grated on her. But the mention of critical and the world is burning resonated with the chilling reports she'd been receiving about the escalating war. She felt the heavy weight of his presence on her porch, a powerful aura of alpha energy that saturated the air around her small cottage. She couldn't ignore him. Not entirely. Not when he invoked their child and the looming conflict. With trembling fingers, Evelyn unlatched the heavy deadbolt, the click echoing loudly in the silent cottage. She pulled the door open just a crack, enough to see his face, but not enough to allow him full entry. Ares stood on her porch, bathed in the ethereal glow of the full moon. He was a vision of raw, formidable power, even in a tailored black shirt and dark jeans that strained across his muscular physique. But what struck her most was the change in his eyes. The usual formidable command was still there, but beneath it, she saw a profound weariness, a deep-seated anguish that had not been present at their last encounter. His face was gaunt, etched with lines of exhaustion, his jaw tight, his lips pressed into a thin, grim line. He looked like a man who had not slept in days, a warrior burdened by an impossible weight. And in his twilight eyes, she saw it, the unmistakable flicker of her own pain reflected back at her, a profound regret that seemed to consume him. "Evelyn," he breathed, his voice a low, rough whisper, as if he couldn't quite believe she was truly there, standing before him. His gaze dropped, sweeping over her body, lingering on the gentle curve of her abdomen. His eyes widened imperceptibly, a flash of disbelief and awe, followed by a raw, guttural growl that tore from his chest. It was a sound of possessiveness, of fierce protection, and an underlying agony. "It's true. The bonded the child." He took a step forward, his hand reaching for her, his eyes blazing with an intensity that promised to consume her. Evelyn flinched, instinctively stepping back, pulling the door wider, not to let him in, but to create more space between them. "Don't touch me," she commanded, her voice surprisingly steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Don't you dare! After what you did?" Ares froze, his hand dropping, hanging limply at his side. His gaze snapped back to her face, a flicker of pain crossing his features. "Evelyn, I know what it looks like. I know what I did. But you don't understand. I never rejected you." His voice was strained, thick with an emotion she couldn't quite discern, but it wasn't cold indifference. It was desperation. "You called our bond false, Ares," Evelyn retorted, her voice rising, the carefully constructed calm shattering. Her tears, previously held back, now welled in her eyes, hot and stinging. "You humiliated me in front of every pack leader. You cast me aside without a single word of explanation, without a glance, while I stood there broken." Her chest heaved with the force of her raw emotion, the months of suppressed pain erupting in a torrent of accusation. "I ran because I couldn't breathe in the same city as you. And now you come here, demanding answers, demanding me, because I'm carrying your heir. How dare you?" Ares flinched, each word a physical blow. He bowed his head, his shoulders slumping, a rare vulnerability in his formidable posture. "You're right," he said, his voice a low, tortured confession. "Every single word. I behaved unforgivably, cruelly, and I deserve your hatred. But Evelyn, I beg you, listen to me. I was under a compulsion, a powerful dark magic. I was tricked, misled." Evelyn scoffed, a bitter, disbelieving sound. "Magic? You expect me to believe that? Ares, you're an alpha. Your will is impenetrable. You can't be tricked like some common wolf." He lifted his head, his eyes burning with an intense, desperate sincerity. "Not by a wolf, no, but by a witch, an ancient sorceress in league with the Ravager. Her magic, it twists perception, it binds the will, it hides the truth even from an alpha's senses." He paused, his gaze pleading with her to believe him. "The night of the ceremony, just minutes before, I was confronted. She appeared to me, hidden by powerful illusions. She told me that if I accepted you, if our bond was sealed, that you would be consumed by an ancient curse, that your life force would drain, slowly, agonizingly, until you withered and died. She showed me visions, Evelyn, terrifying visions of your suffering, of your death at my side if I claimed you." Evelyn stared at him, her mind reeling, trying to process his words. A witch? A curse? It sounded like something out of an old folklore tale, not the brutal reality of modern pack politics. Yet, the anguish in his eyes, the sheer desperation of his plea, felt genuine. He was not a man prone to dramatics or inventing flimsy excuses. She told me, Ares continued, his voice thick with a raw, agonizing remorse, that the only way to save you was to publicly reject you, to sever the bond in the most brutal way possible, to make you believe it was false. That only then would the curse fail to latch onto you. She said the pain would break the bond's tether, forcing you away, keeping you safe from its parasitic nature. She swore it was the only way to save your life. He ran a hand through his dark hair, pulling at the strands, a gesture of profound distress. I saw your tears, Evelyn. I felt your pain through the bond, even as I fought the compulsion to look away. It nearly broke me, but I truly believed, it was the only way to save you, to spare you an agonizing death. Whoa. He took another tentative step forward, his voice dropping to a low, tortured whisper. Every day since that night has been a living hell. I hated myself. I despised the choice I made. But I thought you were safe, that your life was preserved, and then, a few days ago, I felt it. A new life, our life, and life, the bond, which I thought I had broken, roared to life with an intensity I've never known. It was stronger, more undeniable than ever, amplified by the child, and it told me the truth. You were pregnant, and the curse, if it truly existed, was clearly a lie. Or perhaps the bond, in its infinite wisdom, found a way to bypass it, through our child. His eyes, full of a raw, desperate yearning, finally met hers, unwavering. She tricked me, Evelyn. She used my love for you, my desperate fear for your safety, against me. She knew I would do anything to protect you. And now, she has unleashed something far more terrifying than a cursed mate. She has unleashed the Ravager and his army. And my decision, based on her lies, has left us vulnerable, divided, at the worst possible time. Evelyn stood there, speechless, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. His words, if true, explained everything. His sudden coldness, the inexplicable rejection, the depth of her own pain. It didn't erase the humiliation, didn't heal the months of agony she'd endured, but it shifted the landscape of her understanding, introduced a new, terrifying player. The ancient sorceress, allied with the Ravager, capable of twisting even an alpha's will, but the memory of his public cruelty, the searing pain of that night, was still too fresh, too deeply ingrained. Even if that's true, Ares, she finally said, her voice trembling, you still humiliated me. You still broke my heart. You didn't trust me enough to tell me. You made the decision for me, cast me aside like a fragile thing. What kind of alpha does that? A desperate one, he cried, his voice raw with anguish. A terrified one, Evelyn, watching the woman he was fated to be with facing certain, agonizing death. I thought I was making the only choice to save you. To tell you would have been to condemn you. The compulsion held me in a vice. It twisted my words. It froze me from reaching out. Every fiber of my being screamed to hold you, to explain, but I couldn't. It felt like I was tearing out my own soul. It was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. His voice broke, revealing a vulnerability she had never witnessed in the powerful Alpha. He took another step, closing the distance between them, his eyes pleading. I know it's unforgivable. I know I don't deserve you. But please, Evelyn, for our child's sake, and for the sake of every pack facing the Ravager. This sorceress, she twisted the bond itself. She knew its power. She knows about our child now. She orchestrated this division to weaken us. We need to fight this together. The bond is a weapon against her, and our child is a powerful catalyst. If we don't stand united, everything will fall. Evelyn stared at him, the weight of his words, the undeniable truth of the escalating war, pressing down on her. The primal urge to protect her child, fiercely burning within her, began to outweigh her personal pain. She looked into his eyes, searching for deception, for any flicker of the cold indifference that had haunted her for months. But she found only raw remorse, desperation, and a profound, agonizing self-loathing, and beneath it all, the burning, undeniable pull of their raw, fated bond, stronger than ever, amplified by the life they had created. The choice was no longer just about her shattered heart. It was about their child. It was about their world. The silence that descended upon the porch was heavy, punctuated only by the distant sounds of the forest and the frantic beat of Evelyn's heart. Ares stood before her, his formidable presence radiating raw desperation and profound regret. The truth, indeed it was the truth, was a bitter, confusing pill to swallow. His confession, agonizingly detailed and delivered with such raw anguish, chipped away at the solid edifice of her resentment, exposing the tender, still vulnerable core beneath. She studied his face, memorizing the new lines of exhaustion etched around his eyes, the faint tremor in his hands, the way his shoulders slumped with a burden she could now, perhaps, begin to comprehend. This was not the arrogant alpha who had cast her aside. This was a man broken by a terrible choice, haunted by a desperate act of perceived self-sacrifice. And yet, the pain of his betrayal, humiliation she had suffered, was a deep, unhealing wound. A witch, Evelyn finally said, her voice flat, testing the words. A sorceress allied with the Ravager. And you truly believe she cursed me? Ares nodded, his gaze unwavering, fixed on hers. She claimed it was an ancient blood curse, specifically designed to latch onto fated mates upon the sealing of the bond. A parasitic magic that would feed on the Luna's life force, slowly destroying her, breaking the alpha, and leaving the pack vulnerable. She showed me visions of your decline, of your agonizing death. They were horrifyingly real. I didn't see another way to save you. His voice cracked again, and he pressed his lips together, struggling for control. And you believed her, Evelyn stated, not as a question, but a painful observation. You, the most powerful alpha, believed an unknown witch over the undeniable truth of our bond. Over me? I was terrified, Evelyn, Ares confessed, his voice barely a whisper. More terrified than I have ever been in my life. The visions, they were so potent, so vivid. And the magic she wielded, it was unlike anything I had ever encountered. It felt like a physical weight, pressing on my will, twisting my mind. Every instinct screamed to protect you, and her words offered the only perceived path to do so. It was a choice between public humiliation and watching you die a slow, agonizing death by my side. I chose the former, believing it was the lesser evil. My instinct to protect you overrode all logic. Evelyn closed her eyes, imagining his torment. To believe such a thing, to make such a devastating choice under duress, to watch her heart break while believing it was the only way to save her life. It was a horrific dilemma, but still. "You didn't trust me enough to tell me," she repeated, her voice laced with the lingering bitterness. "You thought I was too weak, too fragile, to bear such a truth? To fight by your side? To find another way?" Ares met her gaze, his eyes full of raw remorse. "No, Evelyn. It wasn't that I thought you were weak. It was that the compulsion was so strong, it prevented me from even formulating words to explain. It sealed my lips, bound my will. I tried, Evelyn. I tried to shout, to warn you, but the words wouldn't form. The sorceress's magic was designed to isolate, to divide. It made me believe that any attempt to explain would lead to the curse taking hold instantly, consuming you faster. My silence was a direct result of her enchantment, not a lack of trust in your strength." He paused, taking a deep, shuddering breath. "And now I see the full extent of her deception. She needed us divided. She needed our bond broken to weaken us, to make us vulnerable to the Ravager's attacks. And our child is the most dangerous variable to her. The ultimate proof of her lie." The mention of their child, the tiny life stirring within her, refocused Evelyn's perspective. Her pain, while still profound, suddenly seemed to shrink in comparison to the immense danger looming over them all. If Ares was truly a victim of dark magic, if their division was a calculated move by the Ravager's ally, then their continued estrangement endangered not just them, but the entire supernatural world. And her child, a powerful heir, would be a primary target. She looked at him again, truly looked at the man before her. The deep lines of stress, the profound exhaustion, the raw anguish in his eyes. He wasn't the cold, indifferent alpha who had publicly rejected her. He was a man suffering, a leader bearing an impossible burden. The primal instinct of her wolf, long suppressed by heartbreak, stirred within her, recognizing his pain, sensing the truth in his words. The bond, no longer a phantom ache, thrummed with a compelling warmth, a subtle reassurance that transcended the pain of memory. "Who is she?" Evelyn asked, her voice softer now, her resolve hardening. Not against him, but against their true enemy. "This sorceress?" Ares visibly sagged with relief at her question, a subtle softening of his rigid posture. "Her name is Lyra. She's a descendant of an ancient rogue witch coven thought to be long extinct. She's allied herself with the Ravager, enhancing his power, providing him with dark magic. Her specialty is illusion, compulsion, and curses. She feeds on discord, on broken bonds. She specifically targeted us because our bond, a true fated mate connection, is the strongest force against her magic, a source of light that would disrupt her dark energies. She knows about the child," Evelyn stated, her voice tight with a newfound fear. "Through the bond? Yes." Ares confirmed, his jaw clenching. "The moment I felt the child, the bond flared, stronger than ever. It was a revelation, a shock that reverberated through me. And if I felt it, Lyra would have too. She will know the child survived her attempts to keep us apart, that her lie failed, that our bond, though fractured, is still powerful, especially through our heir. She will see our child as a threat, a potent symbol of our unbreakable connection, and she will come for them." His voice dropped to a fierce growl, his eyes blazing with a primal protectiveness. "That is why I am here, Evelyn. I will not allow her to touch our child. I will not allow her to hurt you again. But to fight her, to defeat the Ravager, we need to be united. Our bond, strengthened by our heir, is our greatest weapon. It is the only thing that can truly break her compulsions and defeat her dark magic. Evelyn considered his words. The logical part of her mind, the part that had always been meticulous and analytical, recognized the chilling plausibility of his explanation. The Luna ceremony had been a meticulously planned event, a moment of immense spiritual power where a weakness could be exploited. And the nature of the bond, its undeniable force, its ability to bypass logic, made it a prime target for manipulation. The existence of the Ravager and his escalating war was undeniable. And if this Lyra was truly capable of twisting an alpha's will and sensing Yaokan, a fated pregnancy across miles, she was a terrifyingly formidable enemy. But the emotional wound, the pain of public humiliation, was still a raw, throbbing ache. Could she truly forgive him? Could she trust him again, after such profound devastation? Could she put her heart and her child's safety back into the hands of the man who had shattered her world? She looked at her burgeoning belly, then back at Ares's pleading eyes. The answers were not simple. The choice was not hers alone anymore. It was about the tiny, innocent life growing within her. A life now inextricably linked to the fate of the pack, to the outcome of this terrible war. "Come in," Evelyn finally said, her voice barely above a whisper, the words a difficult, fragile offering. She opened the door wider, allowing him full entry into her sanctuary, into the small, rustic cottage that had been her haven of solitude. It was not forgiveness, not yet, but it was an acknowledgement of a shared crisis, a desperate truce forged in the face of a common, terrifying enemy. Ares stepped inside, his immense presence filling the small living room, making it feel even smaller. He didn't immediately approach her, respecting the unspoken boundary. His gaze swept around the humble space, noting the simple furniture, the bookshelves crammed with non-pack-related tomes, the quiet solitude of her existence. He saw the life she had built for herself, far from the grandeur of his own pack house. A life that spoke of independence and quiet resilience. He saw the proof of her self-reliance, the undeniable testament to her strength. "Thank you, Evelyn," he said, his voice husky with emotion, a profound relief washing over his face. "Thank you for listening. I know it's not enough. I know I have a lifetime to earn back your trust. But I swear to you, on my honor as an alpha, on the life of our child, I will protect you both. And I will find this sorceress and make her pay for every moment of pain she inflicted upon you, upon us." His words were a solemn vow, etched in the quiet of the cottage, a promise that resonated with the ancient power of his wolf. Evelyn nodded, her gaze firm, meeting his. "You'll have to explain everything, Ares. Every detail, every lie. And you'll have to earn back my trust, piece by agonizing piece. For our child, not for us. Not yet." She needed to make that distinction clear, to protect her still fragile heart. The bond might pulse between them, the child might bind them, but reconciliation was a distant, uncertain prospect. Survival, and the protection of their unborn heir, was the immediate, urgent priority. The first step was taken, but the journey ahead was long, fraught with danger and deeply uncertain. The small cottage, once a haven of quiet solitude, now felt profoundly altered by Ares's powerful presence. His aura, once intoxicating and comforting in its familiarity, now radiated a complex mix of raw alpha strength, deep remorse, and a desperate urgency that filled every corner of the room. Evelyn watched him, her mind still reeling from his confession, from the shocking revelation of Lyra's ancient magic and cruel deception. Her pain remained, a dull throb beneath the surface, but it was now laced with a chilling new fear. The threat to her child, his child, the powerful heir whose existence was now undeniably known to their enemy. He stood near the rustic fireplace, his broad shoulders almost touching the ceiling beams, his formidable presence making the small space feel utterly inadequate to contain his power. He didn't press for physical closeness, respecting her unspoken demand for distance, for boundaries. He merely waited, his eyes fixed on hers, a silent plea for her to absorb his truth. "Sit," Evelyn finally said, gesturing to the worn armchair opposite the sofa where she remained, her hand unconsciously stroking her gently rounded belly. "Start from the beginning. Everything. And leave nothing out." Ares nodded, moving with an uncharacteristic hesitation, and settled into the armchair. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his hands clasped, the picture of a man burdened by an immense weight. He began to speak, his voice low and steady, recounting the events leading up to the Luna ceremony, painting a picture of escalating tensions within the supernatural world, long before the public knew. For months, even before the official reports, my intelligence network began picking up anomalies. Ares began, his gaze distant, focused on the memories. Whispers of ancient, dark magic stirring. Rogue wolf activities increasing, but with a disturbing level of coordination and brutality we hadn't seen in centuries. They weren't just territorial skirmishes. They were targeted attacks, strategically weakening established packs, sowing discord. It was clear there was a puppet master, a guiding hand pulling the strings. He paused, a grim line forming on his lips. My most trusted scouts, my elite trackers, started disappearing. Some were found later, their bodies desecrated, their life force completely drained, leaving behind only husks. The signature was unmistakably magical, ancient, and deeply malevolent. That's when we realized this wasn't just a rogue pack uprising. It was something far older, far more dangerous. The Ravager, he's just the brute force. Lyra is the true architect of this war, the one providing the power. Evelyn listened, her heart clenching with growing apprehension. She had felt the pervasive anxiety through the collective consciousness of the packs, heard the grim reports from her discreet sources, but hearing it directly from Ares, seeing the raw truth in his eyes, made it terrifyingly real. Weeks before the Luna ceremony, Ares continued, his voice dropping to a low, intense rumble, my seer, the one who confirmed our bond, began having increasingly violent visions. She saw a shadow witch, a binder of wills, corrupting sacred rites, twisting fate. She warned of a sacred bond being targeted, broken to unleash chaos. But her visions were fragmented, shrouded in dark magic. We didn't understand the full scope until the ceremony itself. He ran a hand over his face, as if trying to wipe away a horrifying memory. The moment I stepped onto that dais, Evelyn, just before I reached for you, she appeared. Lyra, not physically, not in her true form, but as a mental projection, a powerful illusion crafted directly into my mind. She was beautiful, terrifying, ancient. She whispered promises of power if I joined her, threatened annihilation if I resisted. And then she showed me visions of you. Ares's voice choked, and he had to pause, visibly struggling for control. She showed me you, fading, withering, screaming in agony. She showed me the bond, glowing with a sickly green light, feeding on your essence, draining you until you were nothing but dust in my arms. She swore it was a specific curse, designed for fated mates of powerful alphas, a curse triggered by the final sealing of the bond. She said the only way to break its grip, the only way to save you, was to publicly reject you, to sever the physical act of the bond's sealing, to create such a profound emotional schism that the curse would have no anchor. Evelyn watched him, her heart aching with a complex mix of lingering pain and dawning understanding. His torment was palpable, a tangible entity in the small room. The compulsion she cast it was like a physical vise on my mind, on my will. Ares continued, his voice strained. It amplified her words, made her visions feel utterly real, undeniable. It twisted my thoughts, making me believe her lies as absolute truth. Every fiber of my being screamed to hold you, to protect you, but her magic wouldn't let me. It forced me to look away, to utter those cruel words, to do the very thing that broke my own soul. It felt like I was tearing myself apart from the inside, Evelyn. The bond was screaming. My wolf was howling in protest, but the compulsion, it was absolute. I was a puppet, forced to perform the most agonizing act of my life. He finally looked at her, his eyes raw with unshed tears, something she had never thought possible from the formidable Alpha. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, Evelyn. I know I don't deserve it, but I need you to understand. I truly believed I was saving your life. Every day since that moment, I have lived with the crushing weight of that decision, that desperate, terrible choice. The regret, the self-loathing, it has been a constant companion. When did you realize it was a lie? Evelyn asked, her voice soft, fragile. The moment I felt the child, Ares replied immediately, his eyes blazing with renewed conviction. It was a few days ago. The bond, which had felt like a raw, severed nerve, suddenly roared to life. It wasn't just a flicker. It was a powerful, undeniable surge of new life, a vibrant, burning presence. A child. And through that, the bond became whole again, stronger than ever, connecting us fully. It ripped through Lyra's residual compulsion, shattering the illusion. It was then I knew. She lied. The curse was a fabrication. She only wanted to divide us, to break the strongest fated bond, to weaken the resistance against the Ravager. He took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping over her pregnant form, his eyes filled with awe and fierce protectiveness. Our child, Evelyn, is a miracle, a powerful anomaly. It strengthened our bond to such an extent that it broke Lyra's powerful compulsion. It's a testament to the purity and strength of our connection. But it also means she knows. She felt that surge too. She knows her deception failed. She knows about our heir, and she will come for them. She needs to destroy what she couldn't break. So you came here, Evelyn concluded, her voice devoid of emotion, not because you missed me, not because you truly regretted what you did to me, but because you realized your heir was in danger, and you needed the mother to protect it, and because your bond, the one you called false, is now a weapon against her. Ares flinched, his shoulders tensing. At first, yes, he admitted, his honesty a sharp, uncomfortable truth. The overwhelming instinct was to protect our child, to ensure our heir's survival. That was the driving force that pushed me to find you, to override everything else. But seeing you here, Evelyn, feeling your continued pain, remembering every excruciating detail of that night, understanding the full scope of my unforgivable actions. It's not just about the child anymore. It's about you. It's always been about you, even when I thought I was making a terrible choice to save you. I may not deserve your trust or forgiveness, but I swear, I will spend the rest of my life earning it. And I will protect you and our child with every fiber of my being, against Lyra, against the Ravager, against anything that threatens you both. His voice was raw, his eyes pleading, no longer the impenetrable alpha, but a vulnerable man laid bare by desperation and regret. The authenticity of his anguish was undeniable, a stark contrast to the coldness of that night. Evelyn felt the truth of his words through the bond, a deep, resonant hum that spoke of his sincerity. The emotional walls she had built around her heart, so painstakingly constructed over months of solitude, now seemed to crumble like ancient ruins, exposing her raw, aching vulnerability. The desire to believe him, to cling to the hope that their bond had always crafted. Being true was a powerful, almost overwhelming force. But the scars of betrayal were still too fresh, too deeply ingrained. "What do we do?" Evelyn finally asked, her voice barely a whisper, the question a concession to their shared reality, to the dire threat looming over them. The pain of her past, the shattered dreams of the Luna ceremony, were still there, but the urgent, undeniable need to protect her unborn child superseded everything. The war had found her, and she could no longer hide. And Ares, broken as he was the only one who truly understood the nature of their enemy, the only one strong enough to fight by her side. It was not a choice born of renewed love, but of desperate necessity. Ares stood, his posture still burdened, but with a renewed sense of purpose. "First, we ensure your safety. This cottage is no longer secure. Lyra knows where you are. We need to get you somewhere utterly impenetrable, somewhere she cannot reach, where our child will be safe." His gaze was resolute, focused on the immediate, tangible threat. "Then, we work together. We use our bond, its amplified power through our child, to fight her. We turn her greatest weapon against her." Evelyn looked around the small cottage, her sanctuary, now feeling like a flimsy shield against an invisible, terrifying enemy. Her mind raced, processing the implications. Leaving meant abandoning the fragile independence she had so carefully cultivated. But staying meant endangering her child. The choice was clear, however agonizing. "Where?" she asked, her voice steady now, her gaze hardening with a resolve that matched his own. "Where is this place you speak of?" "The Alpha Sanctuary," Ares replied, his voice grim. "It's an ancient, hidden fortress, deep within my pack's oldest territory in the mountains, guarded by powerful wards and the strongest warriors. No magic can breach it, no enemy can find it. It's where we take our most vulnerable during times of extreme peril. It's where you and our child will be safest." He held out a hand, not reaching for her, but offering a silent invitation, a promise of protection. Evelyn stared at his outstretched hand. It wasn't a hand of romance, not yet. It was a hand of necessity, a hand that offered sanctuary for her child, a lifeline in a rapidly darkening world. The path ahead was fraught with danger, with the agonizing process of attempting to rebuild a shattered trust, with the looming shadow of an ancient war. But she was no longer the broken girl who had fled in tears. She was the mother of his heir, a Luna forged in fire, and she would fight for her child's future, no matter the cost. She took a deep breath, the scent of Ares's desperate sincerity filling her lungs, and made her choice. The journey to the Alpha Sanctuary was a blur of heightened senses and tightly coiled tension. Ares had insisted on immediate departure, his quote, urgency palpable, a constant thrum of anxiety transmitted through the bond. Evelyn, despite her lingering emotional wounds, couldn't deny the wisdom in his haste. The knowledge that Lyra, the malevolent sorceress, now knew of her pregnancy, was a chilling weight, a constant reminder of the imminent danger. They traveled in a sleek, armored SUV, its tinted windows obscuring them from the watchful eyes of the human world. Dev was at the wheel, his silent presence a testament to Ares's meticulous security. The miles melted away as they left the familiar bustle of New York City behind, gradually moving into the wilder cry. More remote landscapes of upstate New York. The city lights faded into a distant glow, replaced by the deep, inky blackness of the night sky, studded with a billion stars. Inside the vehicle, the silence was thick, heavy with unspoken words. Evelyn sat in the passenger seat, staring out at the passing trees, her hand resting protectively on her swelling abdomen. The bond between her and Ares was a living entity in the confined space, a subtle, rhythmic pulse beneath her skin that flared whenever he shifted in the back seat, his restless energy radiating waves of concern and suppressed urgency. She could feel his focus on her, a constant awareness that made her skin prickle, a mix of irritation and an undeniable, unsettling comfort. Periodically, Ares would speak, his voice low and calm, providing updates on the escalating war. The Ravagers' forces are pushing into the Appalachian foothills, he reported, his voice grim. They're targeting smaller, isolated packs, trying to absorb them, grow their numbers. They're using Lyra's magic to sow discord, weaken bonds, turn wolves against each other. It's insidious. Evelyn listened, a cold dread seeping into her bones. The scale of the conflict, the insidious nature of their enemy, painted a terrifying picture. Her previous isolation, her attempts to simply disappear, now felt profoundly naive, almost suicidal in its denial of the looming threat. My pack, along with Elder Alpha Thorne's Silverwood pack and several others, are forming a unified front, Ares continued, his voice hardening with resolve. We're coordinating defenses, training new recruits, trying to counter Lyra's influence. It's a race against time. He looked at her then, his twilight eyes meeting her silver ones in the rearview mirror. That's why your presence at the sanctuary is critical, Evelyn. Not just for your safety, but for the collective morale. You are the fated Luna. Your existence, and the existence of our child, is a symbol of hope, a defiance against Lyra's lies. Even if your bond isn't publicly recognized, your presence within the sanctuary, hidden and protected, reinforces the spiritual strength of the united packs. Evelyn flinched at the phrase publicly recognized, a sharp reminder of his public rejection. The wound still stung, a phantom pain that resonated deep within her. So I'm a symbol, she stated, her voice flat, emotionless, a secret, hidden symbol of hope. That's my role now? Ares sighed, a sound of deep weariness. No, Evelyn. You are far more than a symbol. You are the mother of my heir, a powerful wolf in your own right. And your connection to the bond, amplified by our child, is unique. It's a direct counter to Lyra's dark magic. She thrives on broken bonds, on discord. Our unbroken bond, even fractured, is a constant disruption to her power. Once you are safe, we can explore how to use that, how to turn her own tactics against her. His words, though pragmatic and strategic, still stung. It wasn't about her, about their love, but about her utility in the coming war. A bitter taste filled her mouth, but she held her tongue. Her priority was her child. As they drove deeper into the mountains, the asphalt roads gave way to rougher, unpaved tracks, winding through dense, ancient forests. The air grew colder, crisper, filled with the scent of pine and damp earth. The towering trees formed an almost impenetrable canopy overhead, blocking out the moonlight in places, creating tunnels of shadow. After hours of driving, Dev finally steered the SUV off the main track, onto a hidden path that seemed to materialize out of the dense undergrowth. The vehicle bumped and swayed, slowly ascending a steep, winding incline. Evelyn felt a subtle wah, tremor beneath them. Not from the road, but from something deeper, something ancient. She looked out the window, and through a break in the trees, she saw it. A colossal stone fortress, seemingly carved from the very mountain itself, its dark, formidable silhouette blending seamlessly with the rugged peaks. It was immense, imposing, and felt utterly impenetrable. "The Alpha Sanctuary," Ares said, his voice low, a note of reverence in his tone. "It's cloaked by ancient wards, undetectable by human or most magical means. Only those with alpha blood, or those attuned to the highest levels of pack magic, can perceive it without a direct escort." As they approached, the forest seemed to open up, revealing a hidden valley, nestled deep within the mountains. The air shimmered, subtly, almost imperceptibly, hinting at powerful magical barriers. A massive, iron-bound gate, carved with ancient pack symbols, slowly creaked open, revealing a tunnel carved into the rock. Dev drove through, and the gate rumbled shut behind them with a heavy, final thud. Inside, the tunnel was dimly lit by torches, their flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn stone walls. The air was cool, damp, and smelled faintly of earth and ancient magic. After a few minutes, the tunnel opened into a vast cavernous courtyard, entirely enclosed within the fortress walls. It was bustling with activity. Wolves in various stages of training, their movements fluid, and powerful healers tending to the wounded in a makeshift infirmary. Strategists poring over maps in a well-lit command center. The entire place hummed with the focused energy of a besieged army, preparing for a monumental battle. Her uncle, Elder Alpha Thorne, emerged from the crowd, his face etched with worry but also relief as he spotted Evelyn. He rushed forward, his arms open, embracing her tightly. "Evelyn, thank the moon goddess you're safe. I've been so worried." He pulled back, his gaze sweeping over her, lingering on her stomach with a knowing look. He looked at Ares, a complex mix of anger, relief, and grim understanding in his eyes. "She explained everything," Evelyn said, her voice soft, meeting her uncle's gaze. "About Lyra, about the compulsion." Elder Alpha Thorne sighed, a heavy sound. "Yes, we've had our suspicions. Ares has been battling a strange interference in his decision-making for months. We just couldn't pinpoint the source or its true intention. Until now, Lyra's magic is insidious. It takes a powerful jolt to break her compulsions. Your bond, amplified by the child, was that jolt, Ares." He laid a hand on Ares's shoulder, a gesture of grudging respect and shared burden. "But your actions still caused immense pain, Ares. The kind that leaves scars." Ares simply nodded, his gaze fixed on Evelyn. "I know, and I will live with that every day. But for now, the priority is Evelyn's safety and the war." Evelyn felt the eyes of the pack members on her, their gazes curious, assessing. Whispers rippled through the crowd as word of her pregnancy spread like wildfire through the sanctuary. She was no longer just the rejected mate. She was the bearer of the Alpha Heir, a symbol of hope and defiance in their darkest hour. The weight of expectation, the pressure of her new, undeniable role, settled heavily on her shoulders. Ares led her through the bustling courtyard, past training grounds and supply depots, towards a more secluded section of the fortress. They passed powerful wolves, their faces grim but determined, their weapons glinting in the torchlight. The scale of the war, the pervasive danger, was undeniable. He opened a heavy, carved wooden door, revealing a spacious, private chamber. It was Spartan but comfortable, with a crass, large, four-poster bed draped in thick furs, a stone fireplace, and a small, private bathing chamber. It was a place of refuge, a sanctuary within the sanctuary. "This will be your quarters," Ares said, his voice softer now, less formal, a hint of his old tenderness creeping in. "It's the safest place in the fortress, guarded around the clock. No one will disturb you without my explicit permission. You will have everything you need. Healers, food, anything you require for your comfort and for the health of our child." Evelyn walked into the room, her hand still instinctively on her belly. She looked at Ares, the powerful alpha who had rejected her, then confessed his torment, and now offered her this impenetrable sanctuary. The conflicting emotions warred within her. The lingering ache of betrayal, the dawning understanding of his impossible choice, and the undeniable pull of their amplified bond, now a beacon of shared destiny. "Thank you," she said, her voice quiet, acknowledging the safe haven. She didn't add anything else. Trust, she knew, would not be rebuilt overnight. It would require time, effort, and undeniable proof of his sincerity. But for now, she was safe, and her child was safe, and that was the only thing that truly mattered. The long, arduous journey of healing, of reconciliation, and of fighting a terrifying, ancient enemy had just begun. The Luna he didn't deserve was now his only hope, the mother of his heir, and the key to turning the tide of the looming war. The Alpha Mare sanctuary became Evelyn's world, a formidable fortress carved into the heart of the mountains, pulsating with the urgent rhythm of a pack preparing for war. Days bled into weeks, each one bringing new revelations about the escalating conflict and deeper insights into the complex web of deceit Lyra had woven. Evelyn, confined to her secure chambers for her safety, felt the pervasive tension of the war through the amplified bond with Ares. It was a constant hum of urgency, of fear, of fierce determination, echoing the atmosphere within the sanctuary itself. Her days were spent in a careful balance of rest, prenatal care, and strategic learning. Healers visited her daily, monitoring her and the baby's health with meticulous precision. They discussed diet, exercises, and the unique properties of a fated mate pregnancy, which was believed to imbue the heir with extraordinary power, making the child even more of a target for Lyra. The realization of the magnitude of their child's potential and the danger it represented settled heavily on Evelyn's shoulders. Ares visited her every evening, after long, grueling days spent strategizing with his war council, leading training sessions, and coordinating with allied packs. He would arrive often exhausted, his face etched with strain, but his gaze would immediately soften when it fell upon her, and then her growing belly. He never pushed for intimacy, never demanded her forgiveness. Instead, he simply sat and talked, patiently, relentlessly trying to bridge the chasm of their past. He explained Lyra's methods in agonizing detail. Her power, he elaborated one evening, his voice grim as he spoke of the sorceress, lies in twisting truth, in sowing division. She doesn't always directly attack. She exploits existing fears, magnifies doubts, and uses compulsion to make wolves act against their nature, against their bonds. The more discord she creates, the stronger her magic becomes. She targeted us specifically, Evelyn, because our fated bond, unbroken despite my forced rejection, is a source of pure energy, a profound unity that disrupts her dark magic. She knew that if she could break us, the ripple effect would weaken the entire collective of packs. He also explained the full scope of the Ravager. He's not just a rogue alpha, Ares explained, leaning forward, his eyes intense. He's a wolf corrupted by Lyra's darkest magic, a puppet, but a powerful one. His goal is to eliminate all established pack hierarchies, to return us to a savage, primal existence where only brute force reigns. He offers power and freedom from rules, but it's a false promise. It's chaos. He believes our child, a fated heir, represents the very order he seeks to destroy. And Lyra sees the child as the definitive proof that her compulsion failed, a walking testament to her defeat. That's why they want them. Evelyn listened, her initial skepticism slowly giving way to a chilling understanding. The intricate web of deceit, the deliberate fracturing of their bond, now made terrifying sense. The scale of Lyra's malevolence, her strategic cunning, was truly frightening. The memory of the Luna ceremony still burned, but the context had shifted. It was no longer just a personal betrayal, but a calculated act of war, designed to destabilize the very foundation of their kind. Ares also used these visits to teach her about the war strategies, about the strengths and weaknesses of the allied packs, about the subtle nuances of Lyra's magic. He started showing her encrypted reports on a secure tablet, discussing troop movements, supply lines, and counter-attacks. He treated her as an equal, a strategic partner, relying on her sharp intellect and intuitive understanding. He recognized her analytical skills, honed from her time in the human world studying complex systems, and he saw the leader in her that he had once been blinded to. He didn't just inform her. He sought her input, valued her insights. One evening, as he described a particularly brutal skirmish, Ares's hand instinctively reached for hers. Their fingers brushed, and Evelyn felt a powerful jolt, an electric current that surged through their intertwined bond. It was no longer just the thrum of connection. It was a wave of pure, overwhelming emotion from him. Regret, longing, desperate protectiveness. And through it, for the first time in months, she felt a profound, unspoken love, aching tenderness that pierced through her remaining defenses. She didn't pull away, their fingers interlaced, a tentative, fragile connection. He held her hand gently, his thumb stroking the back of her palm, a silent apology, a promise of devotion. In that moment, the Luna ceremony, the public humiliation, the months of agonizing solitude, all seemed to recede, replaced by the profound intimacy of their shared vulnerability, desperate hope for the future. "I miss you, Evelyn," Ares confessed, his voice raw, his gaze locked on hers. "Every single day. I've regretted my choice more than words can say. Not just because of the child, but because of you. Because I threw away the most precious thing in my life, believing a lie. There's an emptiness inside me that only you can fill." Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes, soft and gentle this time, not tears of pain, but of a quiet, fragile hope. "I missed you too, Ares," she whispered, the confession tearing from her throat, raw and honest. "Even when I hated you, the bond, it never truly broke for me either. It just screamed in agony." He pulled her closer then, gently, carefully, mindful of her pregnant state. He didn't kiss her, didn't demand anything. He simply rested his forehead against hers, closing his eyes. A silent communion of two souls deeply scarred but irrevocably bound. The bond pulsed between them, stronger, purer than it had been in months, a radiant warmth that enveloped them both, a powerful healing energy that flowed from their connection and flowed into their unborn child. "I swear to you, Evelyn," Ares murmured, his voice thick with emotion, "I will never again make a decision that puts you or our child at risk without your full knowledge and consent. My arrogance, my blind faith in my own judgment, nearly cost me everything. I will earn back your trust, not just through words, but through every action, every breath. You are my mate. You are my Luna. And you are the mother of my heir. And I will fight for you, with you, until my last breath." Evelyn felt the sincerity of his vow, not just through his words, but through the profound resonance of the bond. It was a promise that healed a deep part of her soul, allowing a fragile seed of trust to begin to grow. Their evenings together became less about painful explanations and more about strategic collaboration and quiet, re-established intimacy. They would spend hours clont, discussing battle plans, analyzing Lyra's patterns, theorizing about her weaknesses. Their minds, once separated by deception, now worked in perfect synchronicity, their combined intellect a formidable force. The bond amplified their connection, allowing them to anticipate each other's thoughts, to communicate on a level beyond words. Evelyn discovered that her pregnancy had indeed enhanced her connection to the spiritual aspects of their wolf nature. She found herself having vivid dreams, not just ordinary dreams, but fragmented visions, glimpses of Lyra's dark rituals, flashes of the Ravager's destructive path. These were not as clear as a seer's visions, but they were potent, unsettling, and often provided Ares with crucial, tactical insights. They realized her unique bond, amplified by the heir, was truly a direct counter to Lyra's shadowy influence, a beacon of light against her darkness. The war raged on outside the sanctuary. Walls, but within, a fragile peace. A tentative reconciliation was slowly blossoming. Evelyn's belly swelled with the growing life of their child, a constant reminder of their undeniable connection, a powerful symbol of their shared future. She was no longer Brad, just the rejected girl. She was the Luna, not yet publicly acknowledged, but powerfully present, actively contributing to the fight. And Ares, humbled by his mistakes, driven by profound love and fierce protection, was slowly, painstakingly earning back the trust of the woman he had irrevocably bound himself to. The battle for their world continued, but the battle for their bond and the future of their family was steadily being won. As Evelyn's pregnancy progressed, the Alpha Sanctuary became more than just a place of refuge. It transformed into a crucible where her relationship with Ares was forged anew, tempered by shared purpose and the looming shadow of war. The quiet, tentative intimacy they had re-established blossomed into a deep, unwavering partnership, built on a foundation of honesty, respect, and a profound mutual understanding. The bond between them, amplified by the life they had created, pulsed with a constant, vibrant energy, a powerful beacon that guided their every interaction. Her enhanced connection to the spiritual side of their wolf nature, a direct result of the fated mate pregnancy, became increasingly potent. Her dreams, once fragmented visions, grew clearer, more detailed, providing invaluable strategic intelligence. She saw flashes of Lyra's hidden strongholds, heard the whispers of her dark incantations, felt the chilling despair she inflicted upon her victims. She witnessed the Ravager's brutal tactics, the sheer scale of his destructive ambition. Evelyn began to actively meditate, delving deeper into these visions, training her mind to interpret the subtle nuances, to discern patterns in the chaos. Dr. Aliyah, the sanctuary's lead healer, and an elder with deep knowledge of ancient wolf lore, worked closely with Evelyn, guiding her through the complexities of her unique abilities, helping her understand the sacred significance of her visions. Your bond, Luna, is not merely a connection to your mate, Dr. Aliyah explained one afternoon, her voice soft but filled with reverence. It is a conduit, a spiritual anchor to the collective consciousness of our kind. And with the heir, that anchor becomes even stronger, more deeply rooted. Lyra fears this. She cannot twist pure light. Your visions are echoes of her darkness, amplified by the bond, showing you what she wishes to conceal. Evelyn's visions often pinpointed vulnerable supply lines for the Ravager, identified potential ambush sites, and even revealed the presence of corrupted pack members within allied ranks, individuals swayed by Lyra's insidious compulsions. Ares, initially hesitant to fully trust such ethereal intelligence, quickly learned to rely on her insights. Her information, always delivered with chilling accuracy, saved countless lives and turned the tide in several critical skirmishes. She became an indispensable part of his war council, her strategic mind working in tandem with his, their combined intellect a formidable force against their cunning enemy. Their bond, once a source of pain and misunderstanding, now became their greatest weapon. During strategy sessions, Ares and Evelyn would sit side by side, their hands often subtly clasped beneath the table. Through the bond, they could communicate silently, a seamless flow of thoughts, instincts, and tactical insights. This silent communion allowed them to make split-second decisions, to anticipate each other's moves, and to present a united front to their war council, demonstrating a profound level of coordination that astonished their most seasoned generals. Outside the sanctuary, the war intensified. The Ravager's forces, fueled by Lyra's dark magic, pressed relentlessly. Cities were subtly infiltrated, their human populations unknowingly subjected to subtle manipulations by corrupted wolves. The ancient barriers between the human and supernatural worlds were indeed thinning, threatening to expose their existence, creating a global crisis. The sheer number of displaced and wounded wolves seeking refuge in the sanctuary grew daily, straining their resources and their morale. Ares bore the weight of it all with grim determination. Evelyn felt his exhaustion through the bond, the crushing burden of leadership, the grief for fallen warriors. She would often stay with him late into the night, long after the war council had dispersed, offering quiet comfort, a soothing presence that eased the tension in his shoulders. She would simply hold his hand, the shared silence a testament to their renewed connection, a silent promise of unwavering support. One particularly brutal night, after a devastating attack on an allied pack that resulted in heavy casualties, Ares returned to her chambers, his face pale and grim, his clothes stained with dust and blood. The bond screamed with his pain, his despair, his raw grief. He sank onto the bed, burying his face in his hands, his powerful shoulders shaking. Evelyn, her own heart aching with empathy, moved to him, carefully, gently. She sat beside him, pulling his head onto her lap, stroking his hair, her fingers tracing the tense lines of his scalp. She let him grieve, absorbing his pain through their bond, offering silent solace. "It's too much, Evelyn," he whispered, his voice raw, broken. "So many lives, so much destruction, and Lyra, she knows our every move. It's like she can read my mind." "She's not reading your mind, Ares," Evelyn murmured, her voice soft but firm. "She's reading the weaknesses she's created, the discord she's sown. We need to find her source of power. My visions, they're getting stronger. I believe I can pinpoint her location, but it's dangerous." Ares lifted his head, his eyes haunted but suddenly alight with a fierce resolve. "Dangerous how?" "The visions are drawing me deeper into her energy signature," Evelyn explained, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It feels like a lure, a trap. She's aware of our enhanced bond, of the heir. She's aware of my ability to see her darkness. She wants to draw me out, to separate me from you, to exploit the unique vulnerability of a fated Luna. She feeds on powerful magic. My bond, our child's bond, they are incredibly potent." Ares's jaw clenched, his eyes blazing with a protective fury. "No, absolutely not. You're too vulnerable. Our child is too important. We find another way." "There may not be another way, Ares," Evelyn countered, her voice calm but resolute. "Every day we delay, more lives are lost. More packs fall. The Ravager grows stronger. If I can pinpoint her, we can launch a surgical strike, end this war swiftly. Our bond is her weakness, yes, but it is also my strength. With you by my side, I am not vulnerable. Our unity is our shield." He looked at her, his gaze searching, assessing her unwavering determination, her fierce conviction. He saw the Luna she was becoming, a strategic partner, a powerful force in her own right, not just the mate he needed to protect. The bond resonated with her resolve, reflecting its undeniable strength. "We do it together then," Ares finally declared, his voice firm, his decision made. "Every step. If you delve deeper into the visions, I will be with you. I will anchor you, protect your mind. We will use the power of our bond as a shield and a spear, but we move only when you are strong enough. The heir's safety is paramount." From that night forward, their training shifted. Evelyn began to spend hours in a specially warded chamber, guided by Dr. Aaliyah, pushing the boundaries of her spiritual connection. Ares was always there, seated beside her, their hands clasped, his immense alpha energy grounding her, protecting her from the dark energies she encountered in the visions. He would send his mental strength through the bond, a calming, protective force that shielded her mind from Lyra's insidious temptations and the terrifying images of chaos. She saw more. A specific cave system, deep beneath a forgotten mountain range, far to the west, shrouded in ancient, dark magic. She saw Lyra's inner sanctum, a place of twisted rituals and raw, stolen power. She saw Lyra drawing energy from a corrupted ancient artifact, a dark crystal pulsating with malevolent energy, a source of her amplified power. And she saw the Ravager, not just a puppet, but a powerful wolf whose primal rage was amplified by Lyra's dark gifts, transforming him into a monstrous, almost unrecognizable entity. The visions were harrowing, draining. often leaving her trembling with exhaustion, but they were also incredibly precise. "It's the shadow peaks," Evelyn gasped one day, emerging from a particularly vivid vision, her body trembling, her silver eyes wide with the chilling clarity of what she had seen. "A hidden network of caves. She's drawing power from a shard of the Void Stone. It's ancient, corrupted." Ares listened, his face grim. The Void Stone was a legend, a fragment of primordial darkness, believed to grant immense power to those who could control it, but at a terrible price. Its existence confirmed the true scale of Lyra's ambition and the Ravager's ultimate destructive potential. "It's guarded," Evelyn continued, her voice gaining strength, her analytical mind already processing the tactical implications. "Not just by corrupted wolves, but by dark constructs, magical entities she creates from pure shadow, and traps. So many traps, imbued with her compulsion magic. It's a fortress, but it has weaknesses. The crystal, it's her power source, but it also amplifies the light of our bond. It will burn her if she's exposed to concentrated pure energy." Ares gripped her hand, his gaze filled with a fierce determination, but also an overwhelming respect. "You've given us the key, Luna. Now we strike. We will assemble the strongest alpha force. Coordinate a massive diversionary attack to draw the Ravager's main forces, and then a small, elite team, led by me, will move directly for the Shadow Peaks, to Lyra, to the Void Stone." He looked at her, his eyes conveying a silent question. "You are not coming," he stated, his voice firm, leaving no room for argument. "You and our child will remain safe here. This is too dangerous, Evelyn." Evelyn met his gaze, her silver eyes blazing with a resolve that matched his own. Her hand instinctively rested on her swelling belly. "I am the one who sees her, Ares. I am the one who knows her weaknesses. My bond is the purest counter to her dark magic, and my visions are our only guide through that treacherous labyrinth. I am the Luna he doesn't deserve, but I am the mother of his heir, and I will not allow her to touch my child. I go with you, to end this, together." The unwavering conviction in her voice, the fierce protectiveness in her gaze, left no room for doubt. Ares looked at her, at the strength radiating from her, at the raw power of their amplified bond, and knew he couldn't refuse. He might be the alpha, but she was his fated mate, the true Luna, stronger than he had ever imagined, forged in the fires of betrayal and tempered by the steel of her resolve. Their bond was their greatest strength, and to deny her would be to deny their combined power. "Then we go together," Ares declared, his voice resolute, a profound trust shining in his eyes. "But every step you are shielded, every breath I am at your side. Our bond will be our shield, our child's bond, our guiding light. This war ends now." The final battle was set, and the rejected Luna, the mother of his heir, was ready to step onto the battlefield, a powerful force of light against the encroaching darkness. The air in the Alpha Sanctuary's command center crackled with anticipation and grim determination. The strategic briefing for the assault on the Shadow Peaks was underway, and Evelyn, positioned at Ares' side, felt the palpable tension from every wolf in the room. Her belly, now noticeably round and prominent, was a constant reminder of the precious life she carried, a life that was both her greatest vulnerability and her most profound source of strength. The bond to Ares hummed with an almost overwhelming intensity, a shared sense of purpose and a profound silent understanding. Ares stood before a holographic projection of the treacherous mountain range, its intricate cave systems glowing faintly with the malevolent energy Evelyn's visions had revealed. His voice was calm, authoritative, every word a command, yet Evelyn felt the steel beneath his composure, the immense weight of the decisions he was making. "The main offensive begins at dawn," Ares stated, his finger tracing a path on the holographic map. "Diversionary forces, led by Alpha Valerius and Alpha Seraph, will hit the Ravagers' known strongholds in the eastern and northern sectors. Their objective is to draw his main army, to spread his forces thin. It will be a brutal fight, but it's essential to clear our path." He then shifted his focus to the Shadow Peaks, his eyes hardening. "Our strike team, a hand-picked unit of the strongest and most resilient warriors, will penetrate the mountain from the south, using a hidden access point Evelyn identified through her visions. Our objective is Lyra. Her dark magic is the root of the Ravager's power. Without her, he is formidable, but not invincible. Without her, his corrupted wolves will falter." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the grim faces of his elite warriors. "Evelyn will guide us through the complex labyrinth of Lyra's wards and traps. Her amplified bond, and her unique connection to the spiritual realm through our heir, is our compass. She will sense the compulsions, detect the illusions, and pinpoint Lyra's exact location, as well as the Void Stone. This is a surgical strike. Precision is paramount. Casualties will be minimized if we move swiftly and efficiently." End quote. A low murmur rippled through the room. A few wary glances were cast at Evelyn. Her presence on the front lines, particularly in her condition, was unorthodox, unprecedented. But the sheer clarity of her previous intelligence, the undeniable accuracy of her visions, had earned her the grudging respect of even the most skeptical wolves. They trusted Ares's judgment, and if he trusted her, they would follow. "Our bond," Ares continued, his gaze finding Evelyn's, a silent message passing between them, "will act as our shield against Lyra's mental assaults. My Alpha Command will reinforce Evelyn's spiritual awareness, keeping her grounded, protecting her from Lyra's darkest influences. We will be linked, a single, unified force against her." As the briefing concluded, a few commanders approached Ares, their faces etched with concern. "Alpha," one wolf, a grizzled veteran named Commander Reese, began, his gaze flicking to Evelyn. "With all due respect, the Luna's presence on this mission, it's a grave risk, especially with the heir. Should she not remain here, safe within the sanctuary?" Ares's jaw clenched, his eyes blazing with a fierce protectiveness. He placed a hand on Evelyn's back, a silent assertion of their unity. "The Luna's visions are our only guide, Commander. Without her, this mission is a blind charge into Lyra's most heavily fortified stronghold. And her unique bond, amplified by the heir, is the only counter to Lyra's deepest magic. The risk is immense, I concede. But the risk of failure, of allowing the Ravager and Lyra to continue their reign of terror, is far greater. The Luna is a warrior in her own right, her strength unmatched in this specific battle. She is coming, and she will be protected by every wolf here, including myself, with our lives." His words were a definitive statement, brooking no further argument. Evelyn felt a surge of warmth and pride. He was not just acknowledging her presence, he was defending her role, validating her strength. It was a stark contrast to the Alpha who had once cast her aside, and a powerful testament to the trust they had painstakingly rebuilt. Before the mission, Ares brought Evelyn to a quiet, secluded chamber deep within the sanctuary, a place of ancient power. Dr. Aaliyah was already there, preparing a ceremonial anointing. "This ritual," Dr. Aaliyah explained, her voice low and resonant, "will fortify the bond between you and the Alpha. It will strengthen the spiritual shield around the heir, and enhance your connection to the primal energies of the earth, protecting you from Lyra's corrupting influence. Ares and Evelyn stood before an altar carved from ancient stone, bathed in the soft glow of flickering candles. Dr. Aaliyah performed the ancient rites, chanting in a language as old as the mountains themselves, her hands moving through sacred gestures. She traced symbols of protection and unity on their foreheads, on their hands, and on Evelyn's belly, using a sacred oil imbued with pack magic. As she chanted, the bond between Ares and Evelyn flared, becoming a visible aura of shimmering silver light that enveloped them both, pulsating with life and profound energy. The baby stirred within Evelyn, a joyful flutter that radiated warmth through the bond. It was a potent affirmation of their unity, a profound act of spiritual fortification. As dawn approached, painting the eastern sky with hues of bruised purple and fiery orange, the strike team gathered in the hidden tunnel, ready for deployment. The air was thick with the scent of anticipation, of heightened senses, of the primal readiness for battle. Each wolf was a peak physical specimen, their muscles taut, their eyes gleaming with fierce resolve. Ares stood at the head of the team, his dark hair pulled back from his face, his eyes sharp and focused. He wore tactical gear, light but protective, and carried a specialized silver-infused blade at his hip, designed to counter dark magic. Evelyn stood beside him, clad in a specially designed, lightweight protective tunic that accommodated her pregnancy, her silver eyes blazing with a fierce determination that mirrored his own. Her senses were acutely honed, already probing the spiritual veil, searching for the subtle distortions of Lyra's magic. Before they departed, Ares pulled her aside, his hand gently cupping her face. His thumb stroked her cheek, his gaze filled with a profound tenderness that belied the grim circumstances. "I swear to you, Evelyn, on my life, on our child's life, I will not let anything happen to you. Not again. We come back from this. Together." Evelyn leaned into his touch, her heart swelling with an emotion she now recognized as unconditional love, a love that had weathered the storm of betrayal and emerged stronger. "I know," she whispered, her voice firm. "And I swear to you, Ares, we will succeed. Our bond, our child, they are our strength. They are her undoing." With a silent nod, Ares turned to his team. "Move out," he commanded, his voice a low growl of pure alpha authority. The team moved stealthily through the hidden path, shifting into their wolf forms as they approached the base of the shadow peaks. Evelyn, guided by Ares's steady presence and the amplified bond, focused her senses, probing the air for the subtle distortions of Lyra's wards. She felt the ancient, malevolent energy emanating from the mountain, a chilling presence that sought to deter them. "Left," she whispered to Ares, her voice low, a mental command transmitted directly through the bond. "There's a shimmer, a mental illusion. The true path is to the left, beneath the rockfall." Ares immediately relayed the command to Dev, who led the scouting party. They bypassed a cleverly concealed magical trap that would have triggered an avalanche, following Evelyn's precise guidance. Her visions, combined with her enhanced bond, were an unerring compass through the treacherous terrain. They moved deeper into the mountain, the air growing colder, heavier, saturated with the oppressive weight of dark magic. As they entered the labyrinthine cave system, Evelyn felt Lyra's presence grow stronger, a malevolent consciousness pressing against her mind, trying to infiltrate, to sow doubt, to break her focus. But the shimmering silver aura of their fortified bond, pulsating around her, held firm, a powerful shield against the insidious attack. Ares remained beside her, his hand never leaving her back, his alpha strength bolstering her resolve, anchoring her to reality. "She knows we're here," Evelyn murmured, her breath catching in her throat. "She's trying to distract me." Ares squeezed her hand. "Focus, Luna. Feel the light, our light. It's stronger than her darkness." They pressed on, deeper into the mountain, guided by Evelyn's visions and the unwavering strength of their bond. The final battle for their world, for their future, and for the life of their unborn heir had truly begun. And the Luna he didn't deserve was leading the charge, a formidable force of light against the encroaching shadow. The air within the shadow peaks grew thick and oppressive, a tangible manifestation of Lyra's dark magic. The deeper they ventured into the labyrinthine cave system, the more the natural rock walls seemed to twist and writhe, morphing into grotesque shapes under the influence of powerful illusions. Evelyn felt the malevolent presence of Lyra pressing against her mind, a cold, insidious probe seeking to exploit any flicker of doubt, any lingering emotional wound. But the fortified bond, a vibrant river of light flowing between her and Ares, remained their impenetrable shield. Ares moved like a shadow at her side, his immense alpha form a comforting, formidable presence. His hand never left the small of her back, a constant physical anchor that grounded her even as her mind delved into the shifting, ethereal landscape of Lyra's illusions. Through their bond, he poured his unwavering strength into her, a steady stream of reassurance that countered the sorceress's attempts to sow fear and discord. "Trap ahead," Evelyn whispered, her eyes closed for a moment, sensing the subtle distortion in the magical currents. "A ground-level compulsion spell, designed to make us turn on each other, to see allies as enemies." Ares immediately relayed the information to Dev and the elite strike team. They bypassed the area with practiced ease, their silent movements a testament to their discipline and Evelyn's unerring guidance. Myra's frustration, a sharp, cold spike of anger, resonated through the bond, confirming Evelyn's success. Each bypass, each averted trap, was a small victory, slowly chipping away at Lyra's perceived invincibility. They encountered Lyra's dark constructs, grotesque beings forged from shadow and despair, their forms swirling and indistinct, their howls echoing eerily through the caves. They were not wolves, but purely magical entities, extensions of Lyra's will. Ares and his warriors moved with brutal efficiency, their silver-infused blades cutting through the shadowy forms, dispersing them with blasts of pure alpha energy. Evelyn, protected behind Ares, felt the drain of magic as the constructs dissolved, a subtle weakening in Lyra's overall power signature. "She's drawn from the Void Stone to create these," Evelyn informed Ares, her voice tight with strain. "Every time they're defeated, it pulls more energy from her source. We're weakening her." The knowledge fueled their resolve. They pressed on, deeper and deeper into the mountain, the oppressive air growing heavier, the scent of malevolent magic almost suffocating. The terrain became increasingly treacherous, slick with a black, viscous ichor that emanated a chilling aura of decay. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Evelyn stopped dead in her tracks. The bond flared, overwhelming, radiating heat and an almost painful pull. "Here," she breathed, her voice trembling with the sheer power she felt. "Her sanctum. Behind this wall. The Void Stone is beyond." Ares surveyed the seemingly solid rock face before them. There were no visible seams, no cracks, nothing to indicate an opening. But Evelyn's senses and the undeniable surge of the bond told a different story. "Lyra's deepest illusion," Evelyn explained, her voice gaining strength, her mind focusing on the intricate magical patterns she perceived. "It's not a physical wall. It's a mental construct, reinforced by the Void Stone. It makes us believe it's impenetrable, but it's just a trick, A very powerful trick. Ares nodded, his gaze unwavering. How do we break it? Our bond, Evelyn said, looking at him, her silver eyes blazing with fierce determination. Our combined energy. We need to channel it, focus it, directly at the illusion. Its purity will unravel her darkness. The heir's presence, it amplifies our shared light. He immediately understood. He reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers, his immense palm engulfing hers. The bond exploded, a blinding surge of shimmering silver light that radiated outwards, enveloping them both. Ares closed his eyes, focusing his formidable alpha power, channeling it through their shared connection, through Evelyn, through the nascent life within her. Evelyn closed her own eyes, concentrating on the image of Lyra's illusion, willing it to break, drawing on the immense power of their bond, focusing its pure, untainted energy. Together, they unleashed a wave of pure, concentrated energy, a silent, powerful force that slammed against the illusory rock wall. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a faint shimmer, a ripple in the air, like heat rising from asphalt. The solid rock began to flicker, to waver, like a mirage. Cracks, ethereal and glowing with silver light, spiderwebbed across its surface. With a sound like shattering glass, but occurring only in their minds, the illusion shattered, dissolving into shimmering motes of dark energy that vanished into the air. Before them lay a vast, cavernous chamber, pulsating with a malevolent, sickly green light. At its center, on a pedestal of twisted, dark rock, was the Void Stone. It was a jagged, obsidian-like crystal, pulsing with an unnatural, hypnotic glow, its surface marred by dark veins that seemed to writhe like living tendrils. Its energy was oppressive, radiating a chilling sense of despair and decay. And standing before it, her back to them, her form cloaked in swirling shadows, was Lyra. Her dark hair cascaded down her back, and as she turned, her eyes, glowing with an unnatural, malevolent green light, fixed on Evelyn. A cruel, triumphant smile twisted her lips. The rejected Luna. Lyra's voice echoed through the cavern, a dry, rasping whisper that seemed to slither into their minds, directly targeting Evelyn. You foolish, sentimental alpha. You thought you could defeat my compulsion? You thought your pathetic love could overcome ancient magic? Her gaze flickered to Evelyn's belly. And you, the child, you survived my efforts. No matter. I will simply take its power for myself. The heir of the fated Bondiet's energy will be exquisite. It will make me invincible. Ares immediately moved, positioning himself in front of Evelyn, shielding her with his powerful body. You will not touch her, witch, he snarled, his voice a guttural growl of pure alpha fury, his eyes blazing with protective rage. Lyra merely laughed, a chilling, guttural sound that grated on their senses. Too late, Alpha. My magic is already flowing. This chamber amplifies the Void Stone's power, your bond, your strength. They are nothing compared to the darkness I wield. I have been preparing for this. As she spoke, dark tendrils of energy erupted from the Void Stone, snaking towards Ares and Evelyn. Lyra raised her hands, her eyes glowing with malevolent power, and unleashed a torrent of pure, unadulterated darkness directly at them. It wasn't a physical attack. It was a mental assault, a barrage of illusions, compulsions, and horrifying visions designed to shatter their minds, to break their bond, to corrupt their very souls. Evelyn felt the assault slam against their bond, a wall of despair, doubt, and amplified memories of her past humiliation. She saw flashes of Ares rejecting her, heard his cruel words, felt the overwhelming shame of that night. Lyra was trying to exploit her deepest emotional wound, to fracture their unity from within. But Evelyn clung to Ares' hand, to his unwavering presence beside her. The fortified bond, radiant with the power of their reconciliation and the life of their unborn child, held firm. It shimmered with silver light, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. Ares roared, channeling his alpha command through their bond, a powerful mental counterattack that sent ripples through Lyra's assault. "She's trying to break our mental link," Evelyn shouted, her voice strained, her vision blurring with the intensity of the struggle. "Focus the light. The pure energy from the bondade burns her." Ares nodded, his jaw clenched in grim determination. Together, they focused their entire being, channeling the immense power of their fated bond, amplified by the heir, into a concentrated beam of pure, shimmering silver light. It was a conscious, deliberate act of defiance, an outpouring of love, unity, and hope against pure malevolence. The beam slammed into Lyra, striking her full force. She shrieked, a piercing, unearthly sound that echoed through the cavern. The dark energy swirling around her flickered, wavered, and began to dissipate. The void stone pulsed erratically, its sickly green glow dimming, as if struggling against an overpowering force. Lyra staggered, her eyes wide with shock and fury. "Impossible! Your bond. It shouldn't be this strong." "It's stronger because it was forged in fire," Ares snarled, his voice raw with power, and amplified by the purest hope. "Our child. You miscalculated, witch." As Lyra reeled, exposed and momentarily weakened, Ares saw his opening. "Now," he roared, releasing Evelyn's hand for a split second. He shifted, his human form dissolving into a blur of muscle and fur as he transformed into his immense, majestic wolf form. His fur bristled with raw power, his eyes blazing with an unholy light. He launched himself forward, a silver blur of predatory grace, directly towards Lyra. Lyra screamed, throwing up a desperate, last-ditch shield of dark energy. But it was too late. Ares, fueled by years of suppressed rage and fierce protectiveness, slammed into her with the force, quote, of a battering ram, his silver claws raking across her shadowy form. He didn't pause, didn't hesitate. His jaws snapped, closing around her neck in a fatal, decisive blow. With a final, guttural shriek that ripped through the cavern, Lyra exploded into a cloud of black smoke and glittering motes of dark energy that dissipated into nothingness. The oppressive aura in the cavern immediately lightened, the sickly green glow of the void stone flickering wildly. Ares stood over the spot where Lyra had been, his massive wolf form radiating power, his chest heaving. He then turned his attention to the void stone, its power unstable, beginning to crack and crumble under the removal of Lyra's influence. Dev and the other warriors quickly moved in, using specialized magical dampeners to contain the fragment of primordial darkness, ensuring its malevolent energy could never be wielded again. Evelyn, still trembling from the psychic battle, slowly walked towards Ares. He shifted back to his human form, his eyes immediately finding hers, searching for any sign of harm. She saw the immense relief flood his features when he confirmed her safety. He rushed forward, pulling her into a tight, fierce embrace, utterly mindful of her belly, his face buried in her hair. "You did it, Evelyn," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion, raw with profound relief and surging love. "You saved us all. You saved me. You are truly the Luna." Evelyn clung to him, the lingering fear finally beginning to recede. replaced by an overwhelming sense of profound relief and triumph. The bond hummed between them, no longer a shield against darkness, but a pure, unadulterated song of victory, of unity, of shared destiny. The battle within the Shadow Peaks was won. Lyra was defeated, the Void Stone contained. The primary threat to the packs, the insidious force behind the Ravager, was gone. The larger war would still need to be fought. The Ravager's army still defeated, but the tide had irrevocably turned. Evelyn looked up at Ares, her silver eyes shimmering with unshed tears, but this time, tears of pure, overwhelming emotion. "We did it, Ares," she whispered, her voice husky. "Together." The Luna he didn't deserve had proven to be the key to their survival. The heart of their strength, the mother of his heir, and the true embodiment of their undeniable, unbreakable bond. Their painful journey had led them here, to this moment of triumphant unity, to a future they would now build together, from the ashes of betrayal and the triumph over darkness. The defeat of Lyra, the insidious sorceress, sent a ripple of profound relief and renewed hope throughout the allied packs. Her malevolent presence, once a suffocating shadow, dissipated like mist, and with her demise, the dark magic that had amplified the Ravager's power began to wane. The very air within the Alpha Sanctuary felt lighter, no longer burdened by the oppressive weight of impending doom. Ares and Evelyn emerged from the Shadow Peaks, bruised but triumphant, the evidence of Lyra's downfall safely contained. Word of their victory spread like wildfire through the united packs, boosting morale and instilling a fierce, unyielding resolve. The strategic success, directly attributable to Evelyn's visions and the amplified power of their bond, solidified her position as the true Luna in the eyes of every wolf, not just in theory but in undeniable battlefield reality. Her previous public rejection now seemed like a distant, twisted dream, a cruel lie shattered by the undeniable truth of her strength and their unbreakable connection. The war, though still ongoing, shifted dramatically in their favor. With Lyra's magical influence gone, the Ravager's corrupted forces became disoriented, their attacks less coordinated, their compulsions weaker. Ares, his mind now completely, free from Lyra's subtle manipulations, led the counter-offensive with renewed ferocity and strategic brilliance. He coordinated massive strikes, pushing back the Ravager's armies, reclaiming lost territories, and freeing packs that had been under the sorceress's thrall. Evelyn, though no longer on the immediate front lines due to her advanced pregnancy, remained an indispensable part of the war effort. Her visions, now even clearer and less clouded by Lyra's interference, continued to provide critical intelligence. She would wake from vivid dreams, recounting specific troop movements, identifying weakened points in the Ravager's defenses, and even foreseeing critical moments where Allied forces could turn the tide. Dr. Alaya continued to guide her, helping her manage the powerful influx of information, ensuring the visions didn't drain her or the baby. Ares would spend hours with her after each major battle, recounting the details, seeking her input on future strategies. He listened to her insights with unwavering respect. No longer the alpha who made decisions in isolation, but a true partner, valuing her wisdom above all else. Their bond hummed with a constant, deep connection, a silent conversation that transcended words, a tapestry woven from shared purpose and profound love. Their relationship deepened exponentially during this period. The last vestiges of Evelyn's resentment had faded, replaced by a profound understanding and an even deeper love. Ares had not only proven his sincerity, his agonizing regret for his past actions, but he had also proven his unwavering devotion, his profound respect for her strength and intelligence. The fear of public humiliation had dissolved, replaced by a quiet confidence born from shared triumph and an undeniable bond. He was fiercely protective, yet never stifling, always recognizing her autonomy and her inherent power. One evening, as Evelyn approached her final month of pregnancy, Ares found her in their private chambers, sitting by the fire, gently stroking her swollen belly. He knelt before her, his twilight eyes filled with a raw emotion that humbled her. "Evelyn," he began, his voice husky, "the war is almost over. The Ravager's forces are in full retreat. We expect a final, decisive battle within the next few weeks, but their power is broken. And it's because of you. Because of your strength, your courage, your unwavering light." He reached for her hands, his touch gentle, reverent. "I know I have asked so much of you. I know I caused you unimaginable pain. But you faced it all with a grace and resilience that astonished me. You found forgiveness in your heart, even when I least deserved it. You became the Luna I was always meant to have, but never truly appreciated until now." He paused, taking a deep breath, his gaze unwavering. "When this war is won, Evelyn, I want to renew our vows. Not in a forced ceremony, not under the shadow of a lie, but publicly, proudly, on our terms. I want to stand before every pack, before the moon goddess herself, and declare you my fated mate, my Luna, the mother of my child, and the other half of my soul. I want to build our future together, our family, our pack, founded on truth, on trust, on the profound love that binds us." Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes, not tears of sorrow, but of overwhelming joy and profound fulfillment. She had dreamed of this moment, of this level of acceptance and unwavering love. It wasn't just about his remorse, but about his complete and utter devotion. "Yes, Ares," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, her heart swelling with an almost unbearable happiness. "1,000 times, yes. We have fought too hard, sacrificed too much, to not have this. Our future. Our family." He leaned in, gently kissing her forehead, then her lips, a tender, reverent kiss that sealed their renewed vows, a promise of a lifetime together. The bond between them sang, a triumphant symphony of love, hope, and unwavering connection, echoing the powerful life growing within her. Weeks later, the final battle against the Ravager took place in a vast, desolate plain at the edge of the mountains. Ares led the united packs with unparalleled skill, his alpha power formidable, unburdened by Lyra's influence. Evelyn, safely within the sanctuary, guided him through their bond, her visions providing real-time intelligence, predicting enemy movements, identifying crucial strategic points. The Ravager, stripped of Lyra's dark magic, fought with a desperate, animalistic ferocity. But he was no match for the unified might of the Pax and Ares' strategic genius. The battle was long and brutal, but ultimately decisive. The Ravager was defeated, his forces scattered, his reign of terror brought to a conclusive end. The supernatural world erupted in joyous celebration. The war was over. Peace, hard won and deeply cherished, settled over their lands. Days later, back in their chambers in the sanctuary, as the first rays of dawn painted the mountain peaks in hues of gold and rose, Evelyn went into labor. Ares was by her side throughout, his hand clasped firmly in hers, his strong presence a constant anchor, his words of encouragement a soothing balm. He was not just the formidable alpha, he was her devoted mate, vulnerable and utterly present for the miracle unfolding before him. Hours later, amidst cries of pain and profound effort, a new life entered the world. A beautiful, healthy baby boy, his tiny body wriggling in Evelyn's arms, his first cry a symphony of hope and new beginnings. He possessed a shock of dark hair, just like his father, and when he opened his eyes, they were the same piercing twilight as Ares's, yet imbued with a profound wisdom that hinted at the ancient bond that flowed through his veins. "Our son," Evelyn whispered, tears streaming down her face, a mixture of exhaustion and overwhelming love. Ares gazed at his child, his eyes filled with a raw, primal emotion that brought tears to his own eyes. He had never imagined a love so profound, so utterly consuming. He carefully took the tiny bundle from Evelyn, cradling his son with a tenderness that defied his powerful exterior. The bond between them, already immensely strong, pulsed with a dizzying new energy, a triangular connection that now encompassed their heir, a perfect, unbreakable circle of love. "Our heir," Ares murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Alpha Orion." A few weeks after the birth, with the supernatural world finally at peace, the new Luna ceremony was held. It was not in the Grand Astor Hotel, but in a vast, sun-drenched clearing deep within the ancient forests surrounding the Alpha Sanctuary, a place of natural power and profound meaning. Every allied pack leader, every elder, and countless members of both the Silverwood and Crescent Moon Packs, along with their allies, were present, their faces beaming with joy and respect. Evelyn, radiant and strong, stood beside Ares, holding their sleeping son Orion, swaddled in a ceremonial silver blanket. Her silver eyes, now shining with an unburdened happiness, met Ares's twilight gaze. There were no illusions, no compulsions, no shadows of deceit, only raw, undeniable truth. Ares, in his majestic alpha form, stood tall and proud, his immense presence radiating unwavering power and love. He spoke of their journey, of the deception, of Evelyn's courage, of the true strength of their bond forged in fire. He publicly, unequivocally, and lovingly claimed Evelyn Thorne as his fated mate, his Luna, the mother of his heir, and the other half of his soul, acknowledging her invaluable role in saving their world. When he turned to her, his immense wolf form transforming back to human in a shimmer of light, he knelt before her, holding out his hand. This time there was no hesitation, no doubt, only absolute devotion. Evelyn placed her hand in his, and their fingers intertwined, a perfect, unbreakable fit. The sacred sealing of their bond, denied once, was now affirmed with a power and purity that resonated through every wolf present, a wave of palpable unity and profound joy. Evelyn, the Luna he had once rejected, stood tall and proud, holding their child, her heart overflowing with a love that encompassed her mate, her son, and the newly healed world around them. She was no longer just the rejected girl. She was the rightful Luna, a powerful leader in her own right, the mother of his heir, and the unwavering light that had guided them through the deepest darkness, forging a new future for all their kind. Their story was a testament to the enduring power of true love and the strength found in overcoming even the most profound betrayals.